And we're live on the Metal Lab this week. It is the week where we talk about a lot of tournaments, get hyped for Rebirth, and just kind of call it a night. it's kind of a here or there episode. Me and Tom.
The WrestleMania hangover is in full effect.
I was going to say post WrestleMania syndrome is currently affecting myself and Mr. Tom Kerr, and our special guest is not affected by WrestleMania, the WrestleMania post WrestleMania syndrome. Devon. How you doing, Devon?
Hi. No, I am not affected by WrestleMania.
But possibly the like 15 games of clicks in 2 days hangover still applies.
I mean, that was a lot of clicks, yes, and a little too little sleep as well, and too little food as always during tournaments.
The tournament diet.
Yeah, exactly.
I lose my most weight when I'm on tournament season. It's like, oh well, here we go, 16 tournaments. I'm gonna eat like crumbs from the bottom of my backpack that accidentally fell in. Some of them might be food, some of them might be leftover hero clicks that I threw across the room.
New York brought in pizza.
What's that?
Great. New York brought in pizza, which was great. Yes. I wish more tournaments did that. Way too many of them are like, all right, so you're playing 5 rounds of hero clicks. That's 5 hours. It starts before lunchtime. It ends at 5 p.m. and then we give you 15 minutes. Go get food.
Right. That's a weird schedule that you're like, just before you get hungry, we'll start. And by the time you're falling over starving, you'll get a very brief break to try to wolf something down.
Yeah.
And also that's when you're at the peak of your stress, so you can't eat for a while. Yeah, it's just...
Yeah, you know what? One of my big things I always miss is how half the major tournament running venues locally would always have some kind of restaurant in them. For those of you who are not familiar with the Comic Warehouse, you'll see a line of vending machines when you get there. Well, those vending machines are blocking what used to be a nice little cafeteria counter that you could get, food, fries, and stuff like that while you're in a tournament. And I kind of miss that trend, but I kind of understand between the cost of that, running that, plus the cost of maintaining the health code, everything like that. And then, Pops showed up and stores spending money on that. Anyway, I understand why stores don't do it frequently. I just miss the trend. Oh, man, do I ever miss the trend. There's a place out by York University that had like a full-blown restaurant, like liquor licensed restaurant, and it was also like a comic store / hobby store / tournament central. Can't remember what it was called.
You must be turning back the clock because I don't remember that at all.
You know what? Last time I went, I was in my 20s, so.
Right.
It was probably Devon's age. All right.
Okay, so I probably wasn't born at that point.
Ow! Oh! He did it again! The young whippersnapper. Oh, jeez. You see that? I didn't have these gray hairs when we started. All right. So the quick rundown. Myself, Tom, and Devon, along with Amber and some of our other local friends, we went to New York States on Saturday, and some of us, myself not included because I spent a lot of time cooking food on Sunday, went to Ontario Provincials. So it was New York States and Ontario Provincials that were attended by us. Some of us. I just went to New York State, so I got quick story time because I didn't do as well as others in this channel. Spoiler alert, 2/3 of us won tournaments here in these events.
Burying the lead.
I am burying the lead. Also,
they're all Devon.
I don't think that counts as 2/3.
Jason's never been very good at math.
Work in video game design, but I'm terrible at math, guys. It's that's how you know. Ooh, boy. All right. So in New York State, I played, for those of you unfamiliar with it, my scientist team, which consists of the super rare Iron Man from Earth X, Stegron, also from Earth X. Kind of get the theme here. That's most of what the team does. Everything else kind of supports that. Stegron makes dinosaurs, and I get to say my Brontosaurus sidesteps to other players. It's one of the high points of the team.
Yes, having one person create robots and another create dinosaurs is as close you'll get to Dinobots until we actually get Transformer clicks. So
yeah, I'm working on it. Of course, I paid for the Earth X map bonus, where the Tony Stark Tower. This is backed up by Alex Wilder, Moyer McTaggart, Ironheart, and the Ameridroid. 2 things I'm going to miss the most on this team because they work.
We actually all played Ameridroids this weekend.
Yeah, that's true.
We went to America and played Ameridroids.
I mean, I only did Sunday, so I didn't play it in America.
Okay.
But you know,
you were inspired by America.
I was gonna say,
yeah, totally.
He came back with a little mini American flag with from all the patriotism and the freedom. It's like there's so much freedom. I got to play Ameridroid now. Love you, America. By the way, we're having fun. All right. So it was all that to make a big old swarm team and do things. My first round was against Chris, who was a local player. His team was it was pretty cool. It was an Avengers themed team with the two different versions of Giant Girl, the Captain Marvel chase from the movie set, the 150-point chase, not the Fearless, which is the looking for title character. Thank you.
Or the Ultra Chase from Earth X.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Too many Chase Captain Marvels recently.
Yeah. That's next round. He was also playing a Captain America Resilient on his team. And Tom was bar witness to the deciding factor in this game. I was able to kill quite a few things on his team without having to worry too much about the retaliation from the Giant Girls. I was very patient about kind of inching my way up and doing a lot of my work with my Pogs. Did a lot of damage to Captain America Resilient early on, but that 10 movement phasing kind of got him out of the danger zone. I expect no less. And you know, as much as I tried to get up there, it was when his Captain Marvel came to me, and I knew, like, uh-oh, here we go, here comes the fight. And I had, at this point, taken a little bit of damage on my Iron Man, who is now on his second of his colossal clicks. He allowed me to have perplex but no prob with Alex Wilder, and I took one shot with the Iron Man, which would have dealt 6 damage after outwitting the defense with Ironheart, and I critically hit. And it was like, oh.
So you just one-shot the Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel was obliterated, and I was like, that was probably the luckiest I've ever been, because I had this feeling like I'm going to have it on the last click, and then I'm going to have to deal with that other click. We all know what that other click is. Yeah. And try to kill it off of that. So I got really lucky with that, and then I had to chase down the Captain America Resilient, which I was able to eventually do, and I ended up pulling a win out of that one. The second game was up against Jay, who we know from the channel couldn't make it this week. Jay was playing Captain Marvel, the Ultra Chase one this time, along with a Groot, a Mangog,
Colossus,
a Floor Colossus, and a Lockjaw. Yeah,
and
a Tony Stark's car.
Oh, Tony Stark's car. Yep, to give energy.
And a Loki staff and a Goblin glider.
There's a bunch of stuff on it. These guys know better than I do. You guys have probably played against it 1,000 times. Right?
Well, yeah, it won't be the last time you'll hear about that team on this.
No.
So a lot of this game hedged on killing the Colossals. One of which was, I believe it was the Ameridroid, managed to do a ton of damage to both the Floral and the Groot, because he had retaliated against one of my Pogs with the Groot and ended up getting another Walking Wood. So I ended up retaliating with my Ameridroid, and because he tried to pack him in, I was forced to go like right next to the Ameridroid, Mangog, and Floral. Floral had healed a little bit. So it ultimately, when everything kind of, the dust settled on this, I did a bunch of damage because my Ameridroid hit. Okay, cool. Actually, I think I was aiming for the Mangog on this because the Mangog had retaliated himself. The details on this one are a little fuzzy. I just know that there was a clump of Colossals. My Ameridroid hit some of them, not all of them. One of them not being hit was Mangog, and I ended up throwing Mangog towards the middle of the map. Tried to get a little bit damage off as I could, and that didn't work on this one. And then his Mangog was close enough that I was in 2 danger zones. He's either going to get to my my starting zone, or if I commit to an attack, it has to die, because I'm about to lose everything just to the Mangog retaliation. So I have to commit my entire team to killing Mangog. This is the only option I had at this point, because I had the Groot down, and he had used an ID card, I believe, as well at this point. So this is where I used the Stegron Stampede, move everybody on Mangog, and miss a whole bunch. But part of my sideline is a Firestorm, Super Friend, who I called in. And Alex Wilder was also allowed prob this turn. Now, I got nothing but 9s and 10s for my attacks. I don't have a lot of attacks. So I've already thrown 4 attacks at Mangog. None of them hit. So now I got to start taking actual actions with my guys to hit the Mangog. And I don't think Firestorm starts with enough damage to even do damage to Mangog, now that I'm actually thinking about it.
Reprinted?
Does he have 3 print? Okay, so I think Firestorm was one of the guys who tried to attack.
Oh,
it was like
sure.
4 attacks here, and then re-rolls, plus like another series of attacks that weren't free actions from the dinosaurs. And eventually one of them hit, and the Impervious didn't get rolled. It was like, oh!
Yeah, you're glossing over just what a volume, because I was standing by the table at that point watching, but just what a volume of attacks it was. It was like, this is going to be a fairly specific reference, but if anyone is familiar with the Star Control games, you play Super Melee, and you just keep on throwing one thing. Sometimes you'll come against a ship you just can't beat, and you just throw one thing after another and after another and after another in the hopes that something will eventually finish your opponent's single ship. And that was more or less what was happening here. One dinosaur after another dinosaur after another dinosaur after another Pog after another Iron Man after another Firestorm just took their step forward, missed their shot, stepped aside so the next one could come up to miss their shot. Probs were flying, dice were rolling and rolling and rolling, and you weren't rolling badly, but you weren't rolling 8s and 9s.
Nope. 9s and 10s, because this is like a 19 defense on Mangog.
Yeah. You rolled 7s. You rolled 8s when you needed 9s. You rolled 7s when you needed 8s. You rolled 9s when you needed 10s. Like, you weren't rolling badly, but you weren't rolling well enough until about the 9th roll.
Yeah, it was literally the last attack. Like, this is it. If I don't make this attack, this Mangog is going to murder my team because I was too close together, and that's what Mangog does to teams who do that. So I make that last attack, and I'm like, yes! And then Tom out of nowhere actually high fives me. I wasn't even going for the high five. Tom's like, what the? But yeah, and then like shortly after that, Jay was starting to take his turn, and in the middle of his turn, time was called, and I was like, oh god. And I ended up winning that one like 55 to nothing, because he was able to kill Pogs, but you don't score off of my Pogs on my team. So, whew, much sigh of relief here. My third round was up against Jarek. He was part of a group of guys who ended up having to leave immediately after the round. But I do remember his team. It was Lockjaw with a 150-point battle, Black Panther, and 2 Groots. So I won map. My +6 to his +4. It was a really cool team. But I feel like his battle plan was to go aggressive against my Stegron to try to limit the dinosaur effectiveness, but he wasn't able to like one-shot the Stegron, and as a result, I was just able to throw dinosaurs at him. And much like the last game, defenses were a problem, because I came in with the first attack. He had an 18 defense, and I managed to hit him off the first click. Great, cool. And this is with a triggered Stampede. But after that first click,
he's got his combat reflexes.
He's got combat reflexes.
Yeah.
So if you think I had a hard time with hitting Jay, let me tell you about 20 defenses. The thing is, though, when he's got combat reflexes, everything I have hits for like 3 damage. So all I had to do was connect one of the hits. And of course, much like the game against Jay, it was roll, 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 roll. Got him. Okay. And this, I'm kind of using a very similar strategy to what Tyler Spees is using with the monster team, where it's like, if I throw just enough attacks, they're bound to connect, right? And this is with most of my offensive stuff on my team, with the exception of like the Iron Man Pogs. The dinosaurs have like 9 attack, except for the Tyrannosaurus. So I'm working for this, let me tell you. Hopefully I can find a version that gets me some more prob in the future. Some more scientists with prob would be nice, because Mr. Oz is out soon. I think I have him. So anyway, that aside.
Yeah, I'm going to complain about prob in a keyword for my Sunday team as well.
But yeah, that said, I was able to kill the Black Panther, and then he missed with all of his group retaliations too, and that didn't help him at all. And I was able to whittle down the Groots, and then just eventually I was eventually able to do the damage to Lockjaw, but time was called before I could kill him, so I got 190 points off of this round. Couldn't get the Lockjaw off. Darn. My fourth round was against Cody, who had in the previous round beat up Amber. He was playing Starro, the Cosmic Unseen. Thor, Lockjaw, and Unseen.
Unseen and Groot.
And Groot, yeah.
No Lockjaw.
No No Lockjaw? No Lockjaw, yeah. It was
No.
Unseen and Groot, yeah. It's similar to Amber's team, but the two different elements were Lockjaw and Thor versus Star Fox and... were Unseen and Thor versus Amber using Star Fox and Lockjaw. There we go. I got there. And this was just one of my big problems was dial knowledge and Steel Bow being where he needed to be when I needed him to be there, which was not. Because I had, by the end of the time was called, I hadn't managed to, I managed to kill, what did I get on this one? I managed to kill Groot. With Sting has a nasty habit of coming out and killing Groots. That seems to be her job. Cute little robot. Running shot Psychic Blast from where she starts can get to the starting area and kill a Colossal Retaliator. I kind of like that. Especially if they're really, they put a lot of importance on an object that Tank is likely to come walk out and walk away with. Which nobody wants, right? So a lot of people tend to go on the side that lets Sting come out. It's kind of a catch-22 if you think about it. But yeah, I had Thor. Thor has 2 stop clicks, I learned. I got him to the second one. And he started being able to mastermind to Starro, but then I had Starro on his last click, and then I had Thor on his last click, and he was about to Colossal Retaliate with his Starro, and time was called, and I was like, Steel Bow, where were you like 3 turns ago?
So much work.
Yeah, so it was tough beat. It's a beat. My next game was probably my most exciting game that was part of the tournament, because I played a game after. I'll talk about it in brief, where a lot of laughs were had. This was against Jeff. Jeff was playing Wales. And when I say Wales, I'm talking he had 2 50-point whales, 2 15-point whales, and the Civil War
Hope you get Namor.
Namor, and the shark, along with the blood axe that he gives to the shark.
It's so good.
I love the fact you got the shark, and it's got a card, so you can actually do that.
Yeah. So what this game ended up just meeting in the middle, and a whole bunch of things dying that just didn't matter. Like, this was the battle of, this doesn't, I need this attack to hit that, but it's not going to hit that, it's going to hit the 2 things that are worthless to me. And that was like the nature of this game. And it came, like, the last chance I had to score the win on this one was just before time was called. It was my turn, and I had to push a Stegosaurus to try to kill his last remaining whale, and that would have put me over in points. And unfortunately, that didn't come to fruition. I missed with the Stegosaurus on the push. Stegosaurus was gone. It came to his turn, and time was called. We both looked at each other and said, well, I'm glad I tried to make that at least. That could have been the win or not the win. And like, I scored 93 points in that game, and Jeff had scored 110, 115. So literally that whale I didn't kill was the difference. And it happens. So I ended up 3-2, a little short on points because 3-2 could make the top 8 out of 25 people, and I was out. I played
top 12, which
top
is
12,
meaningful.
So I did get a scourge for my efforts, and I was able to play a game after the fact with one of the local players, Charles, and apparently the 2 loudest players in the game of HeroClix met each other. As at one point in my game with him, I was quaking like 6 starfights at a time, while at the same time rolling 6 impervious rolls with my Brontosaurus. And I turned to my Brontosaurus and asked why he didn't do that during the tournament. But we had a ton of fun in that game. At one point, I Colossal Retaliated with an Ameridroid on his Mangog and tossed him off the Bifrost. So I had a ton of fun, and a lot of kudos to Wes and the guys over in New York. You guys were a fun bunch to play with, a lot of smiles on your face, and I really appreciate you know, finding players who, even though it was a state level competitive level tournament, we all had smiles on our face, and that's always good.
Yeah, I did not play any games where we weren't having fun.
Yeah,
agreed. It's a great little store. It's WNY Gaming in what's the name of the town? Hamburg, New York. It was where I went a couple weeks ago for a limited ROC event. I won that event, which is what
got to wear your store champion shirt to
a golden ticket and a rock t-shirt.
Ticket and a cool shirt that I got to wear all day. The Rich Get Richer.
Getting richer.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that store. I think it's a great place. I really love the way they run events there.
All right. So Tom, how did you do in New York? Give us a story of New York.
Sure. I will. I'm also going to kind of breeze a bit because I played a lot of rounds, and then once you add Sunday to it, then there were even more rounds. So one thing at a time. I will, however, talk about the team a little bit. Those who are connected to the online community of HeroClix will already know this as one of PJ Bowen's teams, but gosh darn it, I created it too. When the new Phil Coulson came out, I ultimately wanted to try to make a Shield themed team with the 75-point Phil Coulson and the 70-point Sam Cap and fill that out. And there was no additional use of points that I liked as well as soldiers. And the fact that Phil carries 4 people means 1 Sam Cap and 3 foot elites. So that basically built itself. And then having an Ameridroid just made sense. So past that, it was whatever you do with the rest of your points. I always have a tank. And literally every team I build essentially has a tank. And then it was just whatever I do with the rest of the points. And then I was tooling around with that team, preparing for an event a few weeks ago in a store in Barrie area here in Ontario. And around that time, I was listening to an episode of Critical Clicks where PJ said, "Yeah, I'm going to play a soldier theme this weekend with Phil Coulson, Sam Cap, 3 foot elites, 2 Ameridroids, a tank, and a bunch of ID cards." And I'm like, that's my team. And my first thought was, that's my team. My second thought was 2 Ameridroids. That makes sense. So, kudos to PJ because that's more or less, it's more his team than mine. But I still had a lot of fun with it. And I played it at Jackson Queen, and I played it yesterday. Or I guess Saturday. So, yeah, that's what the team was. I won't go exhaustively into the ID cards, but I will say there were 7 ID cards, along with a Firestorm for when I miss, and the Pim tank is the last slot on my sideline, and it was cool. And I also paid for the Iceberg Lounge map bonus, which I later discovered the PJ was also doing. So another thing where great minds think alike.
Net decking.
Yeah, right. Well, it's so good for disrupting your opponent's objects and.
He scored 10 points against me just by throwing objects with seals.
Yeah, it's the best. I love it.
Seals.
I love those guys. They obviously that map has worked well for me in the past, and I really love the way starting in the middle of the field can mess up your opponent's tempo. So anyway, that was the team. I have to be honest with you. I cannot, for the life of me, remember my first round. I know it was up against a gentleman named Ray. I know that he was a great opponent who, unfortunately, didn't realized that the Green Arrow ID card had cycled, and so we had to kind of make a last-minute change to his team. But you'd think I could remember the team. The idea with that team, by the way, is relatively straightforward. There's a suited henchman on there as well who pushes to death on turn 2. You hope to win maps so that you can token them up on turn 1 and then just kind of stay in your starting area. Push to death on turn 2 to activate your foot boomerangs. Oftentimes you'll also have a Walking Wood or a rather Leslie Evans as an option for that, since there's a lot of Groots out there. My particular version of this doesn't fill the starting area. PJ's does. And then once you've got them activated, then Phil Coulson can carry everybody out. He can remove one of his tradecraft tokens to use a damage power, which is typically either Outwit, Perplex, or Prob, depending upon the needs of the team. All of the foot elites have the opportunity to sidestep and make an attack. They also all have enhancements, so you can call out some Cyclopses or Jean Greys or all kinds of Brood X's, depending upon what you need. Then there's a lot of opportunities for big damage. But you can also get so far across the map that if it's close combat you need, you can call it Wolverines and stuff as well. And so there's lots of things you can do. The Iceberg Lounge bystanders get up in your opponent's face. If they attack them, that's a good opportunity to Ameridroid them. And unlike Jason, my Ameridroid does not hit attacks. He might as well have a 0 attack.
Yeah, another high point is my Ameridroid hit 5 out of 8 attacks it made the entire weekend. It was nuts. It made no sense.
I don't think my Ameridroid ever hit, or he may have very, very rarely. But
mine missed on Close Combat Expert. That's when mine missed.
That's fair.
Mine attacked exactly once. And it
the point, yeah, I've done that too. That it sucks. But the Ameridroid is basically just there to reposition your opponent, because if you can pull them out, you don't have to cross the whole map at once. You just kind of stay back and toast one of their people, or you use it to reposition them so you have a better line to whatever you need. If they didn't tempt you over, you're probably going to get there sooner or later. 2 Ameridroids will go a long way, and Phil Coulson is hard to take out. So even if the initial Alpha Strike doesn't finish the team off, you'll often take a bunch of damage, but you still got a ton of IDs and some retaliators, so there's still a fighting chance there. So, as I said, I don't really remember the first round, which was against Ray, but I do remember that it was a lot of fun. So, thanks, Ray. I remember having laughs and having a good time. I just don't remember the outcome. I do remember that in my second round, I was up against Ricky Kirk, the King of New York, or whatever they call him. He was also a great player to play against. I'd met him before, but we'd never had a chance to sit across the table from one another. So he was playing basically Devon's team from Worlds, which was a Morgan Le Fay team.
I think only Witch Queen was really in common, which I did inspire him on, but the rest of the team is his own.
Oh, I thought that you had Zatanna on that version as well.
No, I was playing Lockjaw.
Oh, okay, so yeah,
he was playing Exospec Zatanna. I was playing Ironheart Lockjaw. Very different teams, really.
Right, fair.
Other than Witch Queen.
Yep, and a couple of retaliators from his side as well as I can't remember all the details, but I do know that in the early goings, I took the seals up to try to get into grab his exospecs and try to get in his face, and I didn't give Alex Wilder, because Alex Wilder was also on the team. I didn't give Alex the choice of Outwit, because I kind of figured if he could outwit the super senses on one of the seals, then he would go for that attack with maybe Zatanna or somebody, and just try to get the exospecs and not give me the opportunity to retaliate on Morgan. And what I really wanted was for him to use Morgan as the attacker so that Ameridroid could pluck her away from everybody else and I could isolate her. And that is what happened. Because I'm assuming that, at least in part because of the fact that he didn't have Outwit, the only way to deal with the senses was Pulse Wave. I laid myself out so that he could Pulse Wave me easily because I frankly wanted him to do it. And he did, and then that triggered the retaliation on my turn to, of course, I missed because it's an Ameridroid, and then I plucked Morgan, took her across the field, and then just laid into her with attacks with everybody else, and eventually they hit. I mean, that's what'll happen, and if you can get around the fact that even without the stat modifications from all the enhancement, there's just still enough pure attacks to be made that as long as they're hitting, then I can be okay. So I perplexed down defense somehow, and everybody else just kind of piled on. So once Morgan was down, the rest of the team was going to have a hard time trying to finish me off. He did get Tri-Sentinel over there to Pulse Wave me. I called out Wolverine to heal the damage back on everyone that got Pulse Wave, and then use that Wolverine to kill the Tri-Sentinel. And then from there, Zatanna got some damage out, and I just kind of outlasted him. So it was a game very much decided in the early goings, but to his credit, he definitely played it out well to the point where it should have been much easier than it was after Morgan went down. I mean, you lose half your team and your primary attacker, it should be a given, and maybe it was, but it certainly felt like a match.
Didn't feel like it.
Yeah, it felt like a match. Round 3 was the last round of the entire weekend of HeroClix where I would actually face an American. It was Joe Pengrosio, thank you. He was playing a very slick little team with the Chase Captain Marvel. In this case, not the Ultra Chase Captain Marvel and not the title Captain Marvel, but the other Chase Captain Marvel, the 150.1, along with his own trade crafter in Nick Fury, as well as a Giant Girl and a Fast Force Giant Girl. And it was a cool little team. The thing that made this match somewhat unique is that my big Alpha Strike just completely didn't work. First of all, I made a really stupid call. I took the seals up. He came over, knocked out one of the seals, then landed next to the other one who was holding a light object with his Captain Marvel. Just before moving everybody else across, I figured, I'll take a swing at Captain Marvel. I would like to deal her 1 damage, because if I can deal her 1 damage, then I can go in, out with the Invincible, deal her 6 damage, and that'll take her out with a Cyclops or some such. So then I said, okay, the seal will go for an attack. I probably won't hit, but I'll do it. Why not? Nope, I used the object. Because I just, right after saying I only want to deal 1 damage, I'm like, oh, I'm holding an object. Might as well use it. Why wouldn't I do that? I'll tell you why. Because when I knocked him onto his last click, where I can't outwit the defense, I could have brought somebody out to try to Psychic Blast against the 20, but it was 21 at that point because he was in hindering, and I was like, I'm going to miss. I'm just going to miss. I'll outwit Hypersonic and hope that he doesn't come after me. So that's what I did instead. I went to try to take out the rest of his team, and I missed everything. So not only did I not get Captain Marvel, but all I did was a little damage to Nick Fury, and the rest of his team was completely clean. So he had the opportunity to retaliate against me and come after me, but he couldn't get rid of the outwit, so he couldn't get Captain Marvel back onto a fighting click. She did Pulse Wave and deal some damage to everybody, but I Wolverine that damage back in the subsequent turn. He started hacking away at my team and weakening them up, and brought in Call in to do some work. But subsequently, I was able to do what I wanted to do in the first place, which is just take Captain Marvel out with a massive enhanced shot from a Cyclops. And once that had happened, then the advantage was still back to me, even though my whole team was a lot weaker. And this began a fairly extended process by which he just started killing my guys, and I started killing his, until it was Nick Fury versus the world, and the world was mostly dead foot elites, some actually dead foot elites, a mostly dead Sam Cap, and still half my sideline. So the sideline was the difference maker there, because it just kept calling things in until Nick Fury died. But again, it's one of those things where when you play an Alpha Strike team, you have to kind of think sometimes the Alpha Strike's not going to work. And then does the team still function? Well, it does, but it's way harder. So I pulled it in.
We'll see a different scenario in Tom and mine's game in round 5.
Exactly. Sometimes what happens when it doesn't work and you can't pull it out. First of all, round 4 was against Emily, our good friend, and she was on anyone who was listening, she was on the show last week. She was playing the same team she talked about last week, so I'm not going to go into detail, but it is Prime Vulture with Doc Ock arms trying to basically incinerate a team, backed up by a bunch of perplexes in the form of a couple Big Tonys and some Don't Die in the form of Lockjaw, unseen for some prob and outwit action. That's the team. I think there's a Rose on there as well, who can bring out flunkies and be an additional source of prob.
And can remove tokens from both Vulture and Unseen, technically, because you share Spy with Unseen and Maggie with Vulture.
Yeah. It's a super good team, and she was just like roasting people with that team. The one thing about it is it's not themed. It's very hard for her to win map against a +6 or +7 in my case, and because we both have Alpha Strike teams to all intents and purposes, then the person who goes first is going to have the best chance, and that's me. And I was able to kind of do the same thing that I did in practice with Emily, which was that once I got I did win map, thankfully, and got the Alpha Strike off. The SEALs tried to disrupt her way of getting the objects, weren't really able to be successful, but I was able to tank her team to get people into position so that I could use my foot elites to take out the Big Tonys, which got rid of the perplexes, so that Vulture was vulnerable to call somebody in, take prob, and just hope that between the probs and the remaining free attacks I could finish off Vulture, which I did. And then it became a long slog, as it is against Unseen and Lockjaw. And frankly, I played against Emily 3 times this weekend. Some of them are starting to kind of blend together in my brain. I know I won that match. By killing Vulture very quickly, as well as the Big Tonys, and then it took a very long time to take out the rest of the team. And in the meantime, she took out most of my foot elites and weakened up my Sam Cap. So it was a back and forth match to the end, but the early advantage was too much to come back from. Now, speaking of Alpha Strikes that don't work, I faced Devon in round 5, and it actually, I shouldn't exaggerate too much, because it's not things could have gone better, but they frankly could have gone worse.
Yeah, I mean, you needed some like 8s and 9s that you did hit, but then you also needed a 6 that you didn't. So
I think your team, yeah, exactly. It's weird. I think your team requires a little bit of explanation, which I'll leave to you when we get there. So I'll be very high level with the summary.
Okay.
Suffice to say, you kind of split one of your main focal points in your team is, well, the main focal point in your team is Surtur, and to make it as hard as possible to get to Surtur, then you sort of split the map with a couple giant girls on one side and a Wasp Heart of the Avengers on the other, so that I kind of had to choose who I wanted to chew through to try to get to Surtur. And to make a long story short, I did chew through the giant girls, but I couldn't get the hit on Surtur when I needed it. And then a series of retaliations later, my team was weakened. I ultimately took some more points, but just at that point it was too far behind and I lost. So more on that later, because it would be hard to otherwise explain without explaining the team, and I'm not going to.
Yeah, that does feel like possibly a too long interval in the middle of you explaining your tournament. So let's move on to your
Agreed.
tournament.
Yeah, so yeah, it's the top 8 was after the break. I faced Emily again, and it was a very similar match. Again, it's a bad match for her. I won map again. She tried to this time bury her up so that I couldn't get through to her, but she did. She was unable to get the Jean Grey that she called in to get the Ock arms behind the barrier with everybody else. So rather than just calling outside, because I could also just Cyclops through the barrier to drop a tank. In this case, I didn't need to. I just tanked Jean Grey, was able to get it into position to get Vulture to pop him out so that I could kill the Big Tonys with the seals and then finish off Big Tony with the rest of my team. And it was very much the same thing as the first one, just sort of a slow process of whittling down the rest of her team from there. In the end, I did kill Lockjaw, and I think that she may have had Unseen left when time was called, but it was pretty much over. And the final round was against Jay. We've mentioned Jay's team was the Chase Marvel, Ultra Chase Marvel, I should say, with Lockjaw, Mangog, Tony Stark's car, Groot, Flora Colossus, and some special objects. And that was another one where I couldn't quite get it done. Like I wanted to go for Mangog early, even though I knew it was going to be a difficult thing to do. The nice thing about those foot elites is that they can attack in close combat. They get their quasi-prob from range, but against the Tony Stark car bonus and the fact he was entirely unhindering, there was no point trying. So instead, I called out a Wolverine.
Yeah, I take the 19 over 22.
Exactly. So I attacked with all the foot elites, a couple of them close combat. One of them had no choice but to do range. They all missed. I called in a Wolverine. He missed. I called out Firestorm. I think Firestorm missed as well. I think everybody missed. And then he was able to retaliate against me.
You got Mangogged?
I don't think I did, because the more I think about it, the more I think I may have actually finally got Mangog with the last attack. It was just that's all I did. And so then Groot came over. He knocked some sense into me, created a Walking Wood who knocked more sense into me, and it just kept weakening up the team until I couldn't really fight it anymore.
Because if your team does get Mangogged, it dies.
It dies if it works. Yeah, basically. So I really had to work to try to get rid of that Mangog. I did get rid of the Mangog as I think about it, or else I just.
I mean, you must have, or you
turn 3.
You would remember.
Yeah, but it was instead I got just Walking Wooded. I mean, there was no way to not have the one without, or there was no way to get them both out unless I was able to hit on some of my attacks, and because it was only the like 7th or so attack of the turn where I finally did get Mangog, then there were none left to go for Groot. And who knows? He may still have been able to pull it out, but it wouldn't have been quite so easy. So in the end, I mean, Jay's a great player, and I don't mind losing ever, to be fair. And I certainly don't mind getting knocked out by a friend and somebody who was an absolutely worthy opponent. So that was a great time. Came in 3rd, got a cool map, and I got a Thunderstrike that I didn't have. So I was very happy.
All right, Devon.
All right, so I'm going to list the game elements of this team in order of importance.
Don't be shocked by the first one.
The most important was Surtur.
Wait, guys, don't disconnect. Just keep going.
The team was Surtur, Wasp, part of the Avengers, the Daredevil from Earth X, who I generally equipped the Venom harness to. Except in my game against Tom, where the Venom harness got thrown at Surtur, which missed, but KO'd the Venom harness. An Unseen, 2 Big Tonys, 2 Giant Girls, a bunch of IDs, and a Joker's gas canister. The Joker's gas canister should actually probably have been higher up there on that list if it was in order of importance.
Right.
And probably should the Big Tonys as well. It's actually kind of hard to rank it there because
it all works together.
I needed all the Colossals to make a wall so that people, and a Groot. I forgot the Groot in my list, actually. I needed the Colossals to make a wall so that people couldn't just kill my really important Colossals, which were Wasp and Surtur. And the Daredevil's entire purpose was to be on hypersonic, pump up his stats with the Venom harness, run across the map, attack something, hopefully he hit. If he doesn't, hopefully they hit him with something that's not an ID card. And then the main trick of the team is that Wasp, part of the Avengers, has a title ability that allows her to change the size of herself and people around her. Colossal Indifference, which is the colossal retaliation power that says that they can't attack smaller characters, says exactly that. So if they are normal sized or tiny, they can attack whoever they want. So the main purpose of the team was after they triggered retaliation, my Big Tonys perplexed up. I blew up the Joker's gas canister and assigned it to Surtur. He was at a 13-6 if I needed to be, or a 14-5 if I didn't need the extra damage. And he would retaliate across the map. He would hit one thing, and then he would take a normal action to hit another. 6 damage, ignores Shape Change because Battle Fury from Joker's Gas Canister, ignores all defense powers because of his damage power. It's really silly. Surtur is one of the best figures in the game, and that's shown by the fact that this team actually worked really well. So I'll start into my rounds. All right, so round 1 I was faced an Undying team piloted by a guy named Nick. He was playing Lockjaw, Haha Joker. He was playing the Fast Forces Joker, who takes a maximum of 2 damage from attacks and gets to place the Joker bombs to heal himself, which was really interesting. And then he was playing Earth-X Daredevil, and he was playing the Haha Hacienda map bonus. Neither of us had theme, so he actually did win map, which he said he didn't expect at all. He expected to just get +1 attack most of his rounds, but instead he got to make the free attacks, which didn't help him all that much in our game, but they definitely could have. Yeah. The game did not go how either of us expected, I don't think. I did all of my normal equipping Venom Harness and moving my Joker's Gas Canister back so that I can put it on Surtur in later turns, moved Unseen up to a patch of hindering so that he would be in position to prob stuff. Turn 2, he moves his Lockjaw out into a patch of hindering. I run at him and hit him with Daredevil. He attacks with his Lockjaw on my Daredevil on his next turn and hits. He rolls a 6, so he actually does take a token off. I go to my poison click. So on my turn, and he just moves his other people around. On my turn, I poison him. I retaliate with a giant girl. I retaliate with a giant girl. I retaliate with Wasp Part of the Avengers. I use Close Combat Expert with Wasp Part of the Avengers. I missed that attack. So he was at 1 token left. I called in a Cyclops to running shot and finish him off. So his Lockjaw died on turn 3 of the game, which I don't think I've ever seen happen before. My team just put out a really silly number of attacks. And from that point on, he kept trying to hit my Daredevil. He did eventually finish him off, but I just retaliated with Surtur a couple of times, eventually killed his Daredevil. The free penetrating damage from the Surtur retaliation dealt most of the damage to his Fast Forces Joker, so he never really got to put the Joker bombs out because those are only on attacks. And the normal-sized attack from Surtur eventually KO'd the Fast Forces Joker. So it was just his Haha Joker standing around for a couple turns, but I finished him off as well because I just had time. Yeah, so that was game number 1. I also KO'd a call-in Banshee. Mm-hmm. So I ended that round with 375 points, which put me in a pretty good position going into round 2. So round 2, I faced Cody, who Jason also played against, and a lot of Canadians played against. He really ran the gauntlet of Canadians in that tournament.
It was you, me, Amber,
and Emily, I think.
And Emily, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think the last round he didn't face a Canadian in was round 2 or something like that. It was pretty silly. Yeah. So he was playing the Surtur, Starro, Groot, Unseen, and Thor, as Jason mentioned. We do a little bit of positioning. I move my Unseen across the map. I call in a Cyclops to try to just run and kill his Groot. I miss the attack. My Daredevil runs across the entire map after pumping his stats with a Venom Harness and perplexes from Big Tony's. And I hit with Hypersonic, and I hit his Starro for 3 damage at a 13-5 or something like that. Maybe just 12-5. Anyway. And then his Starfights start attacking my Daredevil.
Which is just awesome, right?
Which is awesome, because you don't need to hit Daredevil to take the tokens off. It doesn't matter. As long as there's a 6 in the attack, it's great. So, 0 attack, doesn't really matter.
And they're autonomous.
Yeah, and they're autonomous. So he has 3 of them that were within range to attack me. So he attacks with the first one, he doesn't roll a 6. He attacks with the second one, he rolls a 6. He attacks with the third one and crits. Taking off my final 2 6 tokens.
Love it.
And then his Thor flurries and just finishes off my my Daredevil, which I don't really mind. That's really what he's there for. He's there to bait my opponent into attacking him with things that aren't call-ins and can't be poofed, so that I can retaliate with Surtur. So that's exactly what I do. I do the whole Joker's gas canister, perplexes with big Tonys, Surtur's at 13 and 6, he's normal sized, he retaliates. No, he's not even normal sized. I didn't bother because the thing that I'm attacking afterwards is going to be Starro. So it just doesn't matter to me whether he's normal sized, and this way I get to attack from a little farther away and stuff. So I retaliate on Thor, needing a 5. I hit. He doesn't get his super senses. He doesn't get his stop clicks. He dies instantly. His Groot dies from the penetrating damage. His Walking Woods die from the penetrating damage. His Starrophytes die from the penetrating damage. I turn around and I punch Starro, and he's on his last click. And now it's just Unseen on click 2 and Starro on last click. The Starro retaliates. I think he even hit a Mind Control. It didn't really matter. I finished off the Starro. His Unseen was his only figure left. He only had 1 call-in on the team, which was a Chamber, so it was almost impossible now for him to actually deal damage. He kills my Surtur with the call-in Chamber, and then we just have fun positioning for the rest of the game and trying to finish off his Unseen, and his Unseen being like, if I crit miss or crit hit, I can... If I crit hit, I can deal damage, and if I crit miss, I can call out a Trouble Alert, which he actually did manage. He got a Batman out, which was pretty funny. But the game ended without me managing to finish off his Unseen, and I was on to round number 3. Where I faced...
Emily.
Can probably find this. Emily, yeah, that was the Emily round. Okay. This game was really weird. Okay, so Emily and I have practiced this matchup quite a bit. She was the only person that I had practiced my team against before this weekend. And we figured out that if she won map, she had a, 95% chance of winning. I had an Iceman call in to Inspire for Barrier, but even with 3 barriers, she could just call in a Cyclops and then run through it with her Vulture anyway. There was actually no way for me to barrier up enough for her to not be able to get to me on the map that she chose. And she ended up with a 13 attack or something. So no, she couldn't. She had to perplex up movement. So she didn't end up with a 13 attack, but she still only needed to hit 6s or something with an Unseen prob on her first attack, which if she hits, she gets to build up charges. So there's almost
flurry.
a chance. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there's almost no chance of me winning, but I did win map, so I had a chance. That is the entire reason that there was an Unseen on my team in the first place. My initial build of this team included a Haha Joker so that I could fit some more IDs and possibly some special terrain or something on the team. But I realized that my matchup against Vulture and Hawkeye were literally unwinnable unless I had an Unseen on the team, so that I could outwit their movement powers from far away and prevent their large swing alpha strikes. So I swapped that out. So I got to do it. She sidestepped out. She barriered up. I called in a Cyclops to get through her barrier. Going after the Rose, Cyclops had 11 attack. I had a prob on it. Cyclops had 4 damage. She rolls her shape change. I'm like, oh, well, that sucks. So I have to switch targets to Lockjaw. So I crit miss with my Cyclops. And I'm like, prob. No, wait. I don't actually want to prob that. So I didn't prob it. Brought out a Wonder Woman from my sideline and rolled for the action tokens on everybody. Unfortunately, I missed the action token on Vulture, which meant that my Unseen had to sidestep forward so that he could outwit, because the position that I'd initially put him in could only outwit if I had broken the piece of blocking terrain in front of the Rose and not the one in front of Lockjaw. I also hadn't planned on this, which was really dumb. It was definitely my worst move all day, and I didn't put my smoke cloud in the right place. So I was now no longer in stealth with Unseen. So on her turn, she just calls in a Cyclops. She runs out. I need a 5 or 6 to get my super senses. I don't get it. He's dead. And then the game got really weird from there. She cleared everybody else basically. I, on my turn, perplexed up my Wonder Woman's movement to charge around, needing an 8 to hit her Vulture off of his top 2 clicks, which I hit. So she didn't have her big swing, even though I had completely failed in my attempt to get rid of her big swing. And other than that, I mostly just did a little bit of positioning and I cleared, because there really wasn't anything else I could do on that turn. My Daredevil was double tokened, my Unseen wasn't, but he was dead, so it didn't help.
It didn't really matter how many tokens he had at that point.
Exactly. Yeah, so on her turn, she kills off my Trouble Alert, but she does it by hitting him with a big Tony, which means I get to retaliate.
Yep.
So on my turn, I call out my rare Professor X so that I can mind control people so that the big Tony is standing next to people. So I have a rare Professor X on this team mostly so that I can reposition people, because when Surtur is normal sized, he doesn't have Colossal Reach, right? And he's still 4 squares. So you need people to be in the correct positions so that you can still retaliate on the person who dealt damage and hit something else useful. So I retaliate on the big Tony. I hit that. He has a 16 defense. Wasn't that hard. I have a 13 attack. I go for Unseen, needing a 5. I roll a 4. And I missed that, and I was like, okay, well, that's terrible. So I also retaliate with the giant girl, who was also normal-sized. And I miss, obviously, because she had like 8 attack from the Unseen, -2 attack. And then I go all to attack, 1-1 with Close Combat Expert, so that I would have a chance of hitting, and I rolled a 6 instead of a 7 and missed again. And then we just went through like 4 or 5 more turns of just back and forth, me missing a lot, her missing a lot. Eventually I finished off her Vulture. I think I might have actually killed her Unseen, but like my entire team except Daredevil eventually died. So she won that game by like 27 points or something like that. It was a really close game, really weird game. Although I think Tom has me beat on that one. Weird game against Emily on Sunday. But we'll get to that in a bit. All right, so I go into round 4, 2-1. I face a guy named Sean Badgley, who was playing a Undying TMNT team with the Krang, who has to die 3 times to actually die, the Shredder, who has to die 3 times to actually die, the Shifting Focus Rocksteady, who has a stop click, and just some filler, a Foot Elite, I think it was an Axe Foot Elite or something.
Yeah.
Not sure.
The same team he played 2 weeks ago, actually.
Oh, really?
In Limited, yeah, it was the same team.
Right. Yeah, and he had an Exospecs for his Krang. And so we position a little bit. He moves across the map. He shoots at a giant girl with his Krang, and he hits. So he killed a giant girl. I do my whole Surtur trick to retaliate. I've knocked his Rocksteady to a stop click at this point, which I didn't know because I didn't know the dial. So I did like a 6 damage.
It's really good, eh?
Attack. Yeah, 50 points for a stop click that you're not expecting because nobody knows that dial is.
Well, yeah, shifting focus and a stop. Like, it's a decent shifting focus and a stop click. Yeah. It's a good piece.
Yeah, so I retaliate, and I deal 6 damage to his Krang, killing him once. I hit him again, killing him twice. I call out, I think I was playing the rare Prime Professor X this time, so I call out the rare Prime Professor X and Psychic Blast him for 3, finishing off the Krang. And then my Daredevil Hypersonics in to hit the Shredder once, which gets masterminded to the Axe Foot Elite, which is now dead. And the Rocksteady died to the penetrating damage from the Surtur retaliation because he was within 2. So he just has his Shredder left already, and he tries to make some attacks. I don't remember whether they worked out or not, but it just doesn't really matter. I finish off the Shredder in a couple more turns. My team just does a lot of damage. His team is very reliant on people just not being able to make that many attacks, and if there's one thing that my team does, it's make a lot of attacks that deal a lot of damage and ignore defense powers. So it just was a very, very bad matchup for him.
Making it what I would describe as a pretty good team. If there's one thing my team does, it's attacks a lot.
And does a ton of damage, and doesn't care what powers you have.
And doesn't care what powers you have. Like, yeah, that's
pretty good, right?
Good team, then I would say.
All right. I wish dinosaurs did that.
Yeah, you just need to make sure that you survive.
Jason gets to make a lot of attacks that deal okay damage, except that they don't hit because they have 9 attack. If only those dinosaurs just had slightly better stat lines.
I'll be damned, though. That Battle Fury goes for distance.
Oh, yeah. Change is such a common power right now.
It really
I
is.
actually feel like on, 50 or 60% of teams, you should just throw a Joker's gas canister on there. If there's, anything that can possibly use it.
For the next few months,
why not?
Yeah, for the next couple months.
You get to actually try to hit Unimines and Black Panthers and whatever else is equipping symbiotes and Mandarin Remaker rings and Loki staffs and all that kind of stuff. So I really do love Battle Fury as a power right now. Shape Change has always been a very strong power since I started playing, at least. But it seems like it's second most prevalent now.
You came in. Well, at least you came back in the battery land where decoys were everywhere. So we've
Yeah,
been
and
living in.
right after that, Pandora's box.
Yeah, that's an umbrella we've been living in for a while.
Yeah, so
Sadly.
lots of shape change possibilities around everywhere for pretty much my entire meta. And then Tom and I played. I perplexed up giant girl defenses, blocked off lines of fire so that he couldn't get to me. He ran across the map, he hits 9s, and then calls out a Professor X rare to try to tank my Colossals, and can't hit a 6. He rolls like a 5 and then a 4 or something. Maybe he rolled a 5 and then a 6, and then I probbed it into a 4. I can't remember. I had a prob on it, but either way, it didn't hit. And then I got to retaliate with the Surtur and deal a bunch of damage, retaliate with Wasp, called out a Cyclops to knock Samcap to her last click, hypersonic with Daredevil to finish her off, and just like tons of damage output on turn 2. I can't remember exactly what I killed, but it weakened his team. I think there was 1 dead foot elite or something too, killed another 2 the next turn or something, and it just spiraled from there. I don't think that game would have gone the same way twice, so I'm glad that we didn't meet again in the top cut at all. But that particular time that we matched up, I did manage to pull out the win. And then I go into the top 8 at the 1 seed because Tom was the only undefeated player, and I just had more points than everybody else going into the cut because my team was very, very good at just killing everything.
Yeah, nobody went undefeated. What a weird thing in Swiss.
Yeah,
and I think it may have happened on Sunday too. Now that
it did. Yeah, I was 1 seed on Sunday as well, going into the cut at not undefeated. I lost my first round on Sunday, and then ended up being top seed. Not that I did well once we got to the cut on Sunday, but we'll get to that. Yeah, so I refaced the TMNT team in the top 8. He picked the same map again, which was I think somebody said it was Mighty Thor Starter or something. It was these 2 outdoor areas with like an enclosed bridge in the middle.
Yeah, that's a long name, like Howland and Brown or something.
Something like that. Yeah, which he said he really liked the map, but I don't think it was actually beneficial to his team in any way. Right. I think it allowed me to make attacks that I couldn't have on some other maps. If he'd just picked like Star Trek Underground or something, I think I would have had a much harder time hitting his team, but he didn't do that. So it went really much the same way that the first game against him did. I finished off his Krang in 1 turn again and moved on from there.
Cats.
Oh yeah, we haven't mentioned the best part of Saturday yet.
That's true. Yeah.
That during the prize distribution, a very, very large dog named Gideon came to visit.
Just the best.
He was very, very cute. Best dog for sure.
Cute. The thing was a behemoth. I was walking out towards the car when the dog came in. I was like, "There's a bear in here."
But it was adorable. I have no idea what kind of. It was like mastiff size, but it was like fluffy.
I think it may have been Leonberger or Leonberger mix.
Maybe.
If that dog was in a bad mood, it was gonna have its way with me.
Yeah. So basically, as soon as it walked in, Tom and I forgot that there were prizes and turned towards the dog.
Yeah, that's the real prize.
Yeah, anyway, then top 4, I got to face the Whales. It was not a good matchup for him because Whales do not love somebody who deals 5 damage that ignores all of their defense powers.
Yeah.
So he moved slowly across the map. I outwitted the super senses on his shark, and then hypersonicked with Daredevil to kill the shark in 1 turn. I had moved my big Tonys out far enough that his Whales were able to run across the map and quake the big Tonys once. One of his Whales was 1 square further forward than the other one, and he had no perplex on his team of any kind. So the one whale was able to run across the map and quake my big Tonys, which he hit, and I did not prob because I was perfectly happy to have the ability to retaliate with Surtur. And then he runs across the map again, and he does actually hit my Unseen with the second quake, but I super sense out of it because that 50% super senses is pretty good. I think he tried to hit my Daredevil with a couple of attacks, maybe took like 1/6 token off or something in that turn. And then the next turn, so he definitely hit with an Atlantean warrior. And then the next turn, I just like killed half of his team in 1 turn. It was pretty silly. I perplexed up, damaged twice on my Surtur. I retaliated, needing 6s to hit the one, attacked the other, hit again, finished off 2 whales immediately, retaliated with a giant girl on the Atlantean warrior who had attacked. Missed that, which I was happy about because it was the only other thing that had attacked. So if it died, I wouldn't have been able to retaliate with my other giant girl. They had 18 defense in close, so I wasn't particularly likely to hit in the first place. And then my giant girl sidestepped back to his starting area, and close combat expert killed his other whale. My other giant girl retaliates in, also missing the Atlantean warrior, tries to kill the last retaliator whale with close combat expert, but he misses. So Daredevil just hypersonics and finishes off the retaliator whale instead. Daredevil ends beside his Namor, which was the only figure left on his team that wasn't a Pog. And he finishes off Daredevil by just attacking a bunch and getting a bunch of sixes, and then I finish off his Namor on the next turn, and that was game. His team was really interesting and clearly quite good. That was not the matchup for it. It really doesn't work against something that can instantly murder whales and doesn't really care that he has decent swing. Like, if the swing was better, then maybe he would be able to get to my backlines and finish off some of my Colossals, but it wasn't quite good enough, so he just couldn't quite make it there.
It's a fun variation on the whales idea.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. The whales had a lot of attack because of the +1 from the trait on that Namor. All of his stuff just had a bunch of attack, and he could make a lot of attacks in a turn. It was a really interesting team to face, and I really enjoyed it. That was not the matchup for it at all. It did not work out. Right. Yeah, so then I went into the finals against Jay. We did some positioning stuff. I moved my people up. I sidestepped. I think I ended up. Yeah, my unseen was close enough that I could call out a Wolverine, perplex up his attack once because my Daredevil had pushed onto perplex, and then charge flurry on his Mangog, which finished that off. And then I poofed. I don't even remember how I killed his Groot. I think I called in a Cyclops to kill his Groot at some point. I think after I killed his Mangog, though. He moved up with his Lockjaw and his Captain Marvel because he was down on points already and he couldn't just stay back or he was definitely going to lose. So he got like as close to my team as he could. And then on my turn, I finished off his Captain Marvel because I had a 12-4 Daredevil and then just hit him one more time after that. And so his
he needed those rollouts and he didn't get them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he only got one rollout because Battle Fury from the Venom Harness.
Right.
So it was just the Super Senses, but he didn't get it even with the reroll from the map that he won because he had the Wakanda map bonus on his team.
Yeah, he kept not getting that against me either.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Yeah, it did help him once. Right at the end of the game, it did help, but he just didn't have enough points. Anyway, so he just had his Lockjaw left on the map, basically, and a Flora Colossus. The next turn, I poisoned his Lockjaw, taking a token off. His Lockjaw chose Phasing Teleport to get even closer to my team. And my Daredevil died from the Venom Harness, so I got to go back to my Hypersonic click. One of my Walking Woods made it to his Flora, which was like at the back of the map, and flurried on his Flora, needing a 7 and then an 8, hit both to finish off his Flora in one turn. The next turn, I Hypersonicked on his Lockjaw, taking him down to 4 tokens. I used Wasp to make Surtur normal-sized, and shot his Lockjaw, needing a 6, taking him down to 3 tokens. On his turn, he called out a Harley Quinn with his Lockjaw and killed my Surtur. And then on my turn, I poisoned his Lockjaw, hit him once with Daredevil, and then called out, and then sidestepped and called out Brood Professor X beside him to punch him to take the last token off. His Captain Marvel had come back the turn before. He rolled to breakaway running shot, missed it, probbed, missed it. He tried again the next turn, missed it, probbed into a get, and running shot. Pulse waved, hit some things, but didn't really matter. I did some retaliations on it, missed them all, and then time was called, and I had scored like 180 points, and he had scored like 90 or something like that. So, so I was the ultimate champion of the event. I had a lot of fun. Thanks for organizing it, Weston.
Yeah, it was a fantastic time. Love the event.
Yeah.
And hope to get at one point another trip down to that store, depending on what's coming up.
Yeah, congratulations, Devon. Well done.
Yeah, way to go. Wow.
Yeah, and I get to say that to you in a bit.
Spoiler alert. Hey, guess
Fair
what,
enough.
guys? I didn't win because I didn't show on the next one. Sunday, I
Yeah,
was...
it would have been difficult to win.
So
without showing.
during the first round, I was grocery shopping for the food that I needed for WrestleMania. During the second round, I was on the return trip after returning all my empties. We left a little early and forgot the beer store opened at noon. By about third round, I think I had the kitchen nice and clean and ready for me to start cooking. I'm going to stop this joke now that I think I've beaten it into the ground. Tom, you won, so Devin, you get to start on this one.
All right. Yeah, so both Tom and I played something a little different on Sunday. I'll obviously let him explain his team. I had won New York States and just didn't really feel like playing the same thing 2 days in a row. If I had won already with it, it didn't feel like it was necessary, and I just didn't really want to. And something else that had changed between the 2 days was that the WKO prizes from the last round were now legal. So I wanted to try out Isaac. So I played Isaac, and I played Skeets at 115 points. I played Skeets at 35 points. I played one Ameridroid and 2 Tri-Sentinels, and a tank, Tom's favorite, as well as Rare Professor X ID, and then Cyclops ID, and like Harley Quinn, and I don't remember what the fourth one was, a Jubilee or something, because I just didn't have time to find a Jean Grey ID.
Whatever was that?
Well, I had a Jean Grey ID. I didn't have to chase Jean Grey, which is the only useful one.
True.
I'll preface this entire explanation of the tournament with this team was not that good, and I wouldn't play it again. It was obviously good enough to make top 4, but the problem was that it was really slow, and it was really good at giving up extra points. So even if I was killing things, my opponents were generally still scoring more points than I was, which is not where you want to be. So the main trick of the team is basically you sit behind barrier generated by Isaac Lord Gaiapog, and you throw a tank with Rare Professor X, and then you walk through walls with Ameridroids, Tri-Sentinels, and you can deal like 2 tank damage and then 4 penetrating damage from Tri-Sentinels walking through walls if they're next to enough blocking terrain in one turn, which seems like it should be really good, and maybe could theoretically be on a different team, but the problem was I just had nothing to follow it up with, because Skeets starts on a click where he can't really attack, and then I had another Skeets who also can't really attack, and then I had an Isaac who can't attack, and then I had 3 Colossals who can't attack unless they're retaliating. So that was really my only threat. And then, so it worked okay, and the one trick was great, and that worked pretty much every time, but that was really everything on the team. And the team had no prob, and the team had no leadership, because there's no leadership in the robot keyword. I mean, there is, but it's like really high points and didn't fit with my vision for the team. So,
Viv Vision, you can't get on there for prob. She's too many points.
Yeah, exactly.
For just that,
like, prob,
right?
prob and leadership both do exist in the keyword, but not in pieces that are reasonable to play.
Right.
So I would maybe play the robot keyword with Isaac again, but definitely not that particular team. I would have to rethink it completely. The Krang is really good, obviously, and Prez is showing up to be leadership on keywords that don't have leadership, which will be a massive improvement for a lot of keywords. I'm
sorry, I have to pause for a second. I just did a search on HC Realms, went modern, robot, keyword robot, and damage power is leadership, and I got nobody.
Yeah, I think one person has a special power. I think it's Cyber Shredder. I think Cyber Shredder has a special power with leadership in it.
Yeah, alas.
I think there's more the humor that the only character that shows up in this search is nobody.
Right. Oh, I see what you mean. The character is nobody.
Yeah, the character is nobody.
It is good.
That's funny.
How many points?
Sorry for interrupting. 90, I think? 70.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway. Too many, wasn't going to fit on the team. Yeah, so round 1, I was facing Mike White, who's playing his Cosmic team that he played at the WKO that he won recently, where I faced him in the finals. So he did some moving up with his Pip carrying his Unseen and his Mudman. And then I called up Professor X and I tanked. So hit his Unseen for 2 damage. So basically, I hit everything. He super sensed out with the Mudman. He failed to super sense out with Pip. and then he re-rolled it with his once per game re-roll, and he failed to Super Sense out with Pip again, so I got to actually put the tank down. I put Unseen next to 2 pieces of blocking terrain, and then I ran a Tri-Sentinel out, and I walked through one, and then I sidestepped out and back through the other, and killed Unseen on turn 1, which seemed like a really great start, except that then both my Tri-Sentinel and my tank were in really good places to die, which is more points than Unseen is.
Yeah, no, your math checks out.
That counts properly. Yeah, and his Mangog could retaliate. And so technically the thing that lost me this game was that I chose to play Professor X at 75 points instead of 50 because he got +1 attack. So when Mangog retaliated, Professor X died. I lost this game by, I think, 20 points exactly. So that 25-point difference actually did technically lose me this game. But, like, it was pretty dumb to begin with. I still don't think it was a terrible choice necessarily. It just is funny that
exactly.
I could lose you the game. So we went back and forth. Some pretty funny things happened, like my Ameridroid retaliating on a Flora Colossus, missing, and then Close Combat Expert all to attack. He hadn't healed at all with that Flora Colossus that game, and crit missed to die.
Oh, nice.
But the one useful thing that the Ameridroid did do that game was that he had his Pip in stealth, and his Lockjaw had run out to kill one of my Tri-Sentinels. So I Ameridroid retaliated on Lockjaw, put his Lockjaw next to his Pip, called out Harley Quinn, energy exploded, targeting his Lockjaw to finish his Pip off. That was like the most fun move of the game. Despite everything not going perfectly for me, the game still did come down to last action, where I was hypersonicking with my high point Skeets next to my lower point Skeets. So I had 12 attack and PD on Lockjaw. So he had a 17 defense where I was targeting him from. No defensive powers. I needed a 5. I rolled a 4. There is no problem on that team because it's almost impossible in the keyword for the moment. And I missed. And the game was over. I lost by like 50 points. I lost by like 20 points. So the 75 would have been more than enough to put me over the top. But that kind of stuff happens, obviously, in HeroClix, especially when you play teams that don't have prob.
Right.
So, always play teams with prob where possible. So I lost my first game, but I scored a bunch of points. And then I went into round 2 against Kyle. Kyle's a local player. He was playing Captain Marvel Ultra Chase. He was playing Lockjaw. He was playing Star Fox. And I believe a Groot.
There was a Groot on that team, yeah.
Okay. So he moves out with
and a Goblin Glider
to equip a Goblin Glider on Captain Marvel and a Mjolnir on Star Fox. Star Fox just stands on top of the Mjolnir on the first turn because he just doesn't have enough TKs and stuff to get all of his objects back to his starting area. So I call out a Cyclops, which has 14 attack, to go after his Star Fox. I do hit, and he rolls 6 on Super Senses. I'm like,
it happens.
Of course. So
clearly, Devon has forgotten the luck mojo that Kyle has, because Kyle's also the legendary. Oh, is there going to be a chase at this pre-release? Guess who got it?
Literally every time. Happened last Thursday as well.
Yep.
Wow.
Or at least a super rare prime if it's not a chase. I mean,
slumming
it a little, but
well, yeah, the guy's got standards. So what can I say?
Yeah. Anyway, so he equips Mjolnir the next turn and just like moves up with some other stuff. I call out Professor X, where his Star Fox is the only person in range, and I mind control to try to tank for the second time in a row. I actually hit again, barely, needing a 6, rolling a 6. He doesn't get his Super Senses the second time, thankfully. So I tank him next to 3 walls, move out with one of my Tri-Sentinels through the wall, move out with one of my other Tri-Sentinels through another wall, sidestep through the third, finishing off his Star Fox. Then he moves across the map with everybody else. He finishes off all of my Retaliators. He finishes off my low point Skeets. I kill his Captain Marvel. We wait a couple turns. His Captain Marvel comes back to life. He brings it back on my side of the map instead of on his side of the map. So after a couple turns, I finish off his Captain Marvel for the second time, actually scoring the points and win the game. I think if he had just brought his Captain Marvel back in his starting area, there's almost no chance I could have made it there in time, and he was up on points, so he would have just won the game, because I don't think there was any chance of me taking the remaining like 5 tokens off of his Lockjaw. Because as I said, my team had like 1 possible attacker basically per turn. It was the opposite of my team on Saturday. That team made a lot of attacks. This team made 1 attack per turn and tried to do free damage that didn't work if they weren't next to blocking terrain. Yeah, so I did win that game. It was a very, very close game. He played it really well, other than making an aggressive choice, which could have worked out for him. He could have. It was technically not like a terrible decision. He could have potentially killed something else on my team. He just didn't manage it.
Yeah, you got the first opportunity at it, right? Because you can't target him, so he's going to get the first go.
Yeah. But like I positioned it so he could basically just like punch somebody who didn't matter or pulse wave multiple people, which just wasn't great for him. Yeah. So then I went on to round 3 against HeroClix Stan.
Yeah.
He's playing a really fun variation on Shredders with Captain Venom, a Surtur and a Groot, I believe, at the back, and a Mini Shredder and a Claw Shredder.
No, he's giving up on Savante Romero? No!
I never played against that.
He always used to use Savante Romero with the pterodactyls.
He's got full points on that Captain Venom. Captain Venom at full is pretty good.
Yeah. So I did some interesting things where I like barriered up and stuff. He chose Genosha as his map. What I didn't do was read his cards. Because everybody should know what Shredders do. I don't. People don't play Shredders locally for some reason, really.
Yeah, it's not a big thing around here.
I did it many moons ago and everybody complained.
Yeah, so what I didn't know was that Claw Shredder ignores elevated terrain for movement. So he just like ran, so I barriered up and I was like, oh, I'm really safe here. And then he just like ran over the wall and into my team and killed 2 of my Retaliators and dealt 1 damage to Isaac and a Skeets. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that is unfortunate. And then his Captain Venom charges up and quakes my other Skeets and my other Tri-Sentinel. So all of my Retaliators are dead. One of my Skeets is down 1 click. My high point Skeets is already on his first stop click, and Isaac is down a click on turn 1. Wasn't the greatest start of all time. So I move up a bit. I attack with my Skeets onto his Captain Venom, which I hit, taking him down to like his second last click. And then he had double tokened pretty much everybody. So he couldn't really do anything that next turn, except his Mini Shredder, who went and hit Isaac to his stop click, and then all of his people cleared. Because Isaac got hit to his stop click, I had all of the Pogs to choose from on the next turn. So Chaos finished off his Captain Venom, and then I just started putting as many attacks as I could into his Claw Shredder. And because of all of the Pogs, I could like close combat expert with Lord Gaia on his Claw Shredder, taking him down, and then I shot him with my high point Skeets, and then I think I punched him with Isaac himself to finish him off for the second time. So he was actually now down to just his Mini Shredder, which he proceeded to use to kill all of my Pogs, my other Skeets, and my Isaac in 1 turn, because I had just not positioned that well.
That's the Shredders, man.
I just didn't really have mobility options on that team. Didn't really have sidesteps or anything, so I just couldn't do much about it. So I just had my 1 Skeets left on his sidestep click. So I have to clear the next turn. He takes me down 1 click. I hypersonic. He must have dealt 1 more penetrating damage to my Skeets at some point, because my Skeets was on his last click at this point. I hypersonic away to shooting him to a place that he can't get to. He moves after me, doesn't quite get to me. I hypersonic away shooting him to a place he can't quite get to. He clears because there's no point double tokening to get somewhere that you can't get. I clear. He moves. I hypersonic. He moves. I hypersonic. He's dead. It was just like he only had like 5 or 6 movement on every click, and with all the elevated and Mini not being one of the Shredders that ignores elevated, there was no way for him to actually catch up to my Skeets. Sorry, I missed tanking his Colossals in his starting area at some point.
He must have killed his Mini the first time at some point too, so it wouldn't pop in next to your Skeets, right?
No. What I did was I I can't remember how that happened.
Anyway.
I don't know. Something happened anyway. I don't remember that game all that well, to be honest. Maybe I did kill him the first time and then try it again and just like miss a bunch of times. I don't know. Anyway, I won that game with a Skeets on last click, and that was it. And it was a really, really close game, really good game by him. I now will remember that Claw Shredder and Captain Venom ignore elevated for movement, and that I can't rely on blocking movement onto elevated against them. Yeah, so I was into the last round against Patrick Chow, who was playing a Spider-Man family theme team with Spiderling, Venom Spider-Man, the super rare non-prime Spider-Woman, and the Retaliator Spider-Man. And this is where like the glaring weaknesses of my team really start to shine through, because nothing on that team is that hard to KO. Like, he has a bunch of rollouts and stuff, but none of it should be impossible. But I just didn't have enough attacks. Like, he super sensed needing a 6 out of my Cyclops attack, which would have KO'd something. But at the same time, he had 3 tries at it, because he had the Spiderling reroll, and then he had his once per game Wakanda reroll, even though I won map. So he got that. So like, it went back and forth a lot. He finished off pretty much everything on my team except for my high. This is a theme. Everything on my team dies except for High Point Skeets and Isaac. And I missed way too many attacks on his Retaliator Spider-Man to finish him off after killing Spiderling and Spider-Woman on another one. So up until like my last turn, I was behind on points by like 15 or something. And then on my last turn, my Pog from Isaac, I call in Professor X, Rare Professor X, to mind control, because he had moved away with his Retaliator Spider-Man to make sure that I couldn't finish him off, which was really smart. But I mind control him back into the line of fire, and then I running shot with a Stellar X to hit his Retaliator Spider-Man and finish it off on the very last turn of the game, because basically as soon as I passed it back over to him, last action was called. I was like, wow, that was an incredibly close game. And it really did, to me, show just how weak that team was at actually finishing things off and not giving up way too many points.
We were just kind of facing a relatively well-balanced team of things.
Yeah, exactly. Like, nothing about his team was like ridiculously strong. It was good, but none of it was incredible or should have been impossible to kill, and I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I just wasn't making enough attacks. I wasn't dealing enough damage. I didn't have prob. So that was the round that really made me go, I'm never playing this exact team again.
Rounds
It's not
make
going
you
to
go,
happen. And then we got to top 4, where I was first seed and Jay was unfortunately 4th seed. So I had to chase Jay immediately, which going into it, I was like, there is a like maybe 1% chance of me winning this game.
Snowball's chance.
Because his team gives up at max somewhere around like 60 points. If you kill 2 Tri-Sentinels, my team has already given up that many points.
Right.
So, like, it was almost impossible for me to actually win that game. I killed his 8-point tank. I killed all of his Colossals eventually by doing some weird Professor X mind controlling people so that they would move next to walls so that I could walk through them with Tri-Sentinels and finish them off. But then it was his... Eventually, it was his Lockjaw and his Captain Marvel left, and they were just worth 175 points together, and the remainder of my team wasn't worth that many points. So I needed to finish one of them off, and it was effectively impossible. Like, his Lockjaw had like 5 tokens left because I just hadn't been able to deal any damage to him for the entire game, and there was no way I was getting the, like 6 or 7 turns that you need to finish off Captain Marvel. So I tried. I got his Lockjaw down to like 3 tokens from 5 or something, but there was never any chance of me actually winning at that point. The only way for me to win would have been if Jay just like crit missed every attack for the entire game or something. Like, it could have happened, but it was very unlikely. So my run on Sunday ended there at 3rd place. And let's go over to Tom.
Yeah, Tom.
Sure. All right, I'll bring it home. I was playing as well a different team on Sunday, as Devon said. I was pretty wiped after Saturday, and I was excited for WrestleMania, and it didn't occur to me that pretty much everyone got prizing, and so we were gonna have to be there all day anyway. So once I got there, I wanted to stay, and thus started becoming more serious about the game. But going into it, I wasn't really thinking about it. I didn't even really grab anything from home. I kind of went home. I thought I would build a team when I got home Saturday night, but instead I found myself inside of a glass of whiskey and a book. And eventually it was late and I wanted to go to sleep, and I woke up and I didn't want to build a team. So I just had extra teams with me because I always assume that somebody might, like if I'm borrowing something from somebody, they might not show up, so I can just kind of hobble together what I've got. So I had an Earth X theme team that I played before a few times in practice and for fun, and it was a pretty fun team. It's Cap Resilient, that's a title Cap, the Prime Venom, the Daredevil at 60 points, the Skull, that would be the main set Skull that sees the whole map, as well as a Pimp Tank, of course. Every team, I build 292 point teams really.
I mean, especially with the Skull.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
yeah.
pretty good.
Skull and Tank is a one two great taste that taste great together. And an 8 Batman, who was originally there to be the deliverer of my symbiote because I had nothing else. There was nothing else to do in theme. Earth X is hard. Title Cap's great.
Marvel is really the only other thing in the
Yeah.
theme that's worth playing.
Yeah, and there's just too many points in this configuration.
What would you have removed in terms of points in order to fit him on there?
Well, honestly, Title Cap, Daredevil, and Skull is a great little trifecta. That's 180 points, and that's 180 good points. I might as well just call it 188 good points because, again, there's a tank on every team. So after that, there's just there are a lot of options that are all substandard. I liked Venom because Venom is hard to kill and is enough points to call in people. And by and large, if somebody's got to go up there and slow down the rest of the team, she's not don't die, but she has solid defenses and 2 rollouts on all of her clicks. And because she ignores hindering, she's usually in it, so she's getting a bonus from the range sometimes. And I mean, she's not great, but she's not awful. And she's incapacitate, which is useful in a world of lockjaws. So yeah. So it wasn't, I never really put this team together expecting it was going to be a world-beating team. There's also a bunch of ID cards, but again, I was limited by not borrowing. Thankfully, Devon was kind enough to lend me a second Wolverine so that I could have 2 Wolverines along with 2 Cyclopses. Like that was my whole sideline. I had a couple options on the Cyclops as well.
Go wrong with a couple of Wolverines and a couple of Cyclops.
Yeah, exactly. It's really that's not a bad thing. Oh, and the Skull map bonus, which is fairly important.
What does that do if you don't get map roll?
It's actually pretty good. It's opposing characters modify their defense -1 against incapacitate, telekinesis, and mind control. So Skull's super mind control is always a -1, and when you're tanking, I'm used to going -1 on my attack anyway, so it gets me back to where I want to be when I'm tanking. It's not phenomenal, but for 5 points, it ain't bad, especially considering when I do win map. So the way that I'll kind of go a bit quickly because a lot of the people we've already met. Kyle's team was the one that Devon faced. I won map there and was able to kill the Goblin Glider with a Cyclops on turn 1, so that limited his mobility with his Captain Marvel. I just started. This is a great game, honestly, because it was one of these games where there weren't lopsided dice on either side. We were both making lots of attacks. Some were hitting, some were missing. Sometimes rollouts worked, sometimes rollouts didn't work. It's one of those types of games, and it was a lot of fun. I tanked early to take out his Groot and I think his Walking Woods at the same time, just because I was able to get the positioning on it. And then with the Goblin Glider taken out, then he had to be a bit more stick and movie. And by bringing Daredevil up to the middle of the field and calling out Wolverines for flurrying, along with getting in there like 8 Batman through an object at some point, I kept Cap and Skull back for the most part, brought Venom in as a second source of call-ins, and then charged in and just tried to hold the line. My rollouts worked enough that I got knocked down my dial, but I never got knocked out. I was able to take his Captain Marvel out with a Wolverine, so he went off to the side of the map. Star Fox, Daredevil brought out Chase Cyclops for the Chase Cyclops trick, which is the usual
number 1 way to kill Star Fox.
Exactly, precision strike with knockback into the edge of the map. So that was a dead Star Fox. Captain Marvel came back, and I was already ahead when Captain Marvel came back. I was able to position such that he couldn't make an attack from where he was, and because he didn't have the glider, he couldn't move an attack. So he moved. And then I was like, this is it. This is my turn. I charged with Cap, because he was on charge at that point. No, wait. I running shot with Cap to be 1 square away. And I missed. And I missed. Then I made the free attack. I moved 1 to make a free attack. And I hit, but he rolled super senses. I charged in with Venom, and I missed. I called in Wolverine. I charged. I flurried. I missed once. The second one hit, and he rolled super senses. So 5 unsuccessful attacks later, I was like, well, I guess that's it for me. He hurt Cap, but he didn't kill Cap. And then I think they called time. So I'm pretty sure I would have been able to finish that Captain Marvel with just my sheer flurry of attacks. But who knows? It was a close game and a good game. My second round was against Mike. Mike just walloped me in that match. I tried to go out and take out his Mangog unsuccessfully. I missed some rolls. I tried tanking, it didn't work. Eventually he Mangogged my team and he just hit everything. Really, I burned through all of my theme probs, didn't work. And he just, I don't think he didn't wipe me, but he pretty much annihilated me and then just sort of chose his spots. He played conservatively, and what was the point? He kind of locked down my Daredevil at some point. Eventually finished him off. So there wasn't much left when that game was over. So I learned an important lesson.
Like crit your Daredevil immediately or something to take all of the tokens off.
Basically, it was crazy. I learned an important lesson about not being so aggressive. Because another thing is that EarthX team, it's not a don't die team, but it's not that easy to take out unless you give an opportunity. Because Daredevil goes down
Cap
hard.
has a lot of clicks. Daredevil is very hard to take out. Venom
Skull has a bunch of stop clicks.
Skull has a couple of stop clicks.
Yeah, it's
not full don't die, but not easy to kill.
Yeah, I quickly learned the thing that would ultimately win me the whole tournament, but it's both Mike and Jay later, which was don't be aggressive. Like, just hang back, try to get a few points, force them to come to you, and just sort of play an evasion game. So anyway, I learned that the hard way and lost the second round.
Yeah, I mean, that's what my team really needed to do, but it just wasn't built properly to be able to do it.
Pull it off.
Yeah.
The third round was against Emily, which I thought, I didn't think I had a lot of chance. I did have a lot of rollouts, so I at least I figured maybe Vulture wouldn't just go through my whole team, but I didn't. Anyway,
somehow, even with how weird my game against Emily was, this still wins the title. This game against Emily of
yeah. Yeah, this was quite something. I mean, it was really the first couple rounds that were the weird part, because what happened was I won map. I got Daredevil up to the middle of the map, but there's no way I could really go after the objects. But the nice thing about the Skull Camp is that there is no convenient line of fire TK, so that she couldn't pull the octopus arms just back to her starting area. So she had a couple options. She could have called in a Jean Grey to do the work, or she could have just kind of moved out and focused on getting there on the next turn. And considering I can't close the gap, nor do I want to, there was not a lot of reason for her to need to go out that aggressively to get the arms. She could have just got them on turn 2. And by all reasons, that should have been what happened. So on my turn 2, I mind controlled her Vulture from across the map in the hopes of being able to take out one of the big Tonys and at least reduce her perplex. I got the mind control. I got Vulture to move, and then he missed his attack against Big Tony. I was like, this is not going to go well. Daredevil was in position to be able to call in a Cyclops, and I thought, well, maybe if I can Psychic Blast Vulture into the middle of his dial, then he won't be on the charge click, and it'll slow him down or her down a little bit. So that's what I did. Called in a Cyclops and gung ho across the map. I went for a Psychic Blast, and I crit missed with the attack.
Somehow, crit missing against Emily with a Cyclops to do a trouble alert is actually a theme of these stories. I don't know why. It seems like it should be so ridiculously unlikely that it couldn't happen more than once, but it somehow happened to both Tom and I.
I know. What are the odds?
Possibly related question. Has anybody seen my dice?
Yeah, so I crit missed, and I looked over at my trouble alerts, and an important part of this is I built with what was in the car, and I don't have very many good trouble alerts, so I don't have a flash, I don't have a firestorm, so what do I have? A Superman. No one has ever played Superman as a trouble alert because he's not really good for anything, because what are the odds that you're ever going to need to have a charged super strength character? Well,
I have to admit, I have played with Superman, and I gave up 40 points to Superman. That is
so did I, but boy was it worth it, because I crit missed, called out Superman, and Emily even said, "Superman, what does he even do?"
He's
And I
Superman's,
said,
Emily. Come on.
and I said, "I'll show you what he does," because I was in charge range of the octopus arms. I was like, "This is my only chance. I can destroy the arms and give my team a chance. I'll give up 40 points just to take out the arms." As it turned out, it was even more impressive than that because the only charge target I had was unseen. I was like, "Well, there's no way I'm going to hit an 8
I need
against
an
a
8,
prob."
and then he has a 50% super senses. This isn't
Exactly.
going to happen.
And a prob against that he hadn't used yet. So over went Superman, grabbed the octopus arms, rolled a 9, probbed, rolled another 9. She rolled a 1 on super senses. So I KO'd the arms and unseen, all with one from alert Superman.
It's not unseen. It's a goddamn arms race.
And the Superman wouldn't have even been on the team if I had better trouble alerts. Like, that's the funny part. Like, it wasn't by design at all. This was pure necessity. So that was dumb luck, and Emily and I were laughing pretty hard. But at that point, it was very hard for her to close the gap because without the arms and without the unseen for the prob, Vulture can get over there, but
there's nothing really on your team to just kill instantly to build up those charges in the first place. It's not a team where you can, that's like only 10 Colossals where you can just be like, okay, well, I don't have the arms, but I can kill a Colossal and then kill a Colossal and then kill a Colossal. It's like, I can attack a Daredevil.
Yeah. I mean, well, that was it. She did take out Superman and then figured if she could take out the Daredevil, then she could get the lead back. But she had bad luck against the Daredevil. Like, she gradually got 6s, but not too many, only a couple of them over many attacks. In the meantime, I was killing big Tonys and just getting little bits of points. So at one point, I moved out Venom to be a second call-in battery. She went Hail Mary with all of her remaining effort to get to the Venom with Vulture. She couldn't have KO'd him in one go, but would have at least knocked some damage into her. She missed, and then I just sort of pounced on Vulture with the Skull and Captain America and title effects and everything, and ultimately took him out the Vulture, and that was it. So that was an unlikely win from a ridiculous opening.
How often did you use Captain America's -3 retaliation kind of thing? It's not
Never yesterday. I've used it before with that team, but yesterday it never did come up because Captain America stays back a lot.
Yeah. On my Hawks team where I played that title Captain America, I used it I think every game.
Yeah.
Because he was standing in my starting area and using title abilities, right?
Right.
That was the entire purpose on the team. In your team, he probably wasn't taking free damage for no reason most of the time.
No, he was largely there to be like. He was there for Perplex, Theme Prob, and Defend on the Skull, who was just doing things from across the map. Because by and large, Retaliators would come over, and then they would need like a 19 to hit against a bunch of Theme Probs, and I would hope to just turn into a miss so that I could get their points. And so that was more the purpose. And once they do close the gap, then Cap goes on the offensive. But it's a far simpler use of Cap in some ways. But I still think he's good because he's deep and he's got lots of good things.
He has way too many clicks for his points.
Oh, I love it.
That's the title character situation. You look at him and go, it has this many clicks? And then you remember when you kill it, bad things happen.
And just some nice stats, you know?
Yeah. Great.
Why not start with a 12-3 with Perplex?
Yeah, I'll take it. Especially with the double attack and everything, gaining plot points for just keep on attacking. I love it. The last round of Swiss was against HeroClix Stan, as mentioned, the monster team. He very smartly on his first turn, because I won map again, very smartly on his first turn, he spread his entire team out so there was no way to tank more than one thing. But it was worth it. I tanked Surtur anyway. I just wanted it dead. And I was like, well, I'll go behind in points. He never actually wound up going after the tank because he wanted to close the gap on me and beat the team. But on turn 2, I tanked his Surtur and I Cyclops his Groot. So the Retaliators were gone. Now he had to close the rest of the gap. Daredevil was in the way to a certain extent, and what was nice was I had a Leslie Evans on one side and an 8 Batman on the other, outwitting the sidesteps, and then using Daredevil to try to lock down the Shredders. So that did slow him down a fair amount, and then by the time he was moving, he just decided to bypass the Outwitters and go straight for my starting area to try to do more damage with Mini Shredder.
Yeah,
and
Daredevil really doesn't care about Shredders.
No, not at all. And that was a mistake on his part because once he was in there, then it was just a dog pile. I mean, Captain America attacks twice. I called in a Cyclops to blast him away, and I threw an object at him with 8 Batman. So I took out Mini Shredder in one turn while Daredevil was busy still locking down Claw Shredder. And then I called out Wolverines to attack as well as going after him with Cap because he was close enough by that point. Took out Claw Shredder by the time Venom got there, and then took out Venom with the rest of my team. So it was a fairly sequential thing. Just a good kind of the positioning worked to my advantage, and it helped that he didn't try to go for the tank and force me to take an action. So,
which line did you generally start your Daredevil on?
Generally, to sidestep. Sidestep and movement is enough to exactly get him into the control room, which gives me another option on the Skull Camp. If people do go into the tracks, because you can do it with Skull and the person in the control box.
I like 2 things on my Daredevil on Saturday specifically. I really liked having hypersonic because the entire point was to bait my opponent into attacking him. So being as far up the map as possible is a very good way to bait people into attacking him.
Right.
And then just if he made a call in on turn 2, intentionally pushing onto Perplex.
Always. 100%.
So that your call in would get +1 attack or damage or whatever you needed.
Every time. Yep. Yeah, I would if I lost map, I would often go hypersonic. But if I won map, then the sidestep was right the sweet spot. Especially considering I was usually using him to call people in once he was in position, and the sidestep helps to get into the right position.
You didn't have a Venom bonus on him for the 12 and 4 or whatever, right?
Yeah, attacking with Daredevil was gravy. This is a very efficient team. I pretty much used all my call-ins in pretty much every game. And the hope was that between them and the Skull, the tank, and what little other attacking I was doing, it was just enough to meter out against my opponents. In top 4, I faced Mike again, and as I mentioned earlier, this time I was much more conservative, kind of let him have to come to me. I can't exactly remember everything that happened in that game, but a lot of things went in my favor. At one point, he called in an Iceman to Pulse Wave, tried to take out my Leslie Evans as well as hopefully get a 6 on Daredevil and hurt my Venom, but he crit missed. And he had to get unseen out of position in order to not be in the Pulse Wave range, so he had no source of prob. And that crit miss was exactly the damage necessary for me to crank everything into Captain America to run across and KO him. Mangogged my team, but I was able to get it turned into a miss. I was able to take out Mangog, and then he did get enough points that we would have been exactly tied had on last round I not been able to Wolverine charge and take out Pip, and he missed his super senses on Pip. So those 40 points wound up winning me the game. It was pretty tight, but it was a great game, actually. That was a really cerebral sort of a game, which I love, because I glossed over the fact that I also had some pretty bad turns, bad misses and stuff as well. Like it went both ways. And my match against Jay was it was like driving in a car that does nothing but accelerate. Or it was like going down a hill in a wagon, because we started out slow positioning, and then once it started going, he started going faster and faster and faster. Because again, I stayed back, wanted to get some early points. I was able to Cyclops his Mangog and take him out despite the Tony Stark bonus with just a good roll, I think. I think that's what happened, but my memory is not what it was.
You have lots of Perplex and
a
couple of probs on that team too, so
yeah.
See how it can happen.
It was he didn't decide to. Later, I also mind controlled Flora or to try to go and whack his Groot and failed. I had mind controlled his Groot earlier in the hopes that he would take the bait and come over and try to group me, because I figured I could turn it into a miss and then just kill his group, but he didn't take that bait. And I believe Group basically spent almost the entire game in the starting area until he didn't have a choice, because as the game got later and I was ahead on points, at one point he finally had to come in with a Groot. I think he may have actually hit, but I still got him back and was able to lock down the Walking Wood with some outwits. I was able to get his Captain Marvel out. His Captain Marvel got a big hit, and the important things of the game. I'm going a bit. I know we're going late, so
we're at that late point. So
yeah,
fire it up.
Yeah, exactly. The important thing of the game is that he got one big hit against my Captain America with his Captain Marvel, because he ignores almost everything for targeting, which knocked him down to like his third last click. And the next time that he hit, Captain America would have been game. So I just stayed right back. I took his Captain Marvel off the map with a Wolverine. He tried to close the gap with Lockjaw on what was left, couldn't quite do it. Faced Cyclops to get farther away. He called in a Jean Grey. I missed my shape change, but he missed his rolls thanks to some theme probs. So Captain America lived for another day. At the very end of the game, Captain Marvel came back. I blocked off one of his lines of fire. They called time just before he had a chance to like do anything about it. Another 2 minutes and he probably would have taken me out. Another 5 minutes and I probably would have subsequently taken his Captain Marvel out. So I think that game is probably his to win, but we were going so fast at the end, it's amazing he even got the opportunity to a certain extent. So yeah, it was an unexpected win, but it worked well.
Yeah.
Well, congrats. Same top 3 in New York and Ontario, but with Tom and I switched.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 1 and 3. We tagged each other out.
And that was Provincials at Comic Book Addiction.
Yes, thank you very much to them. As
very
always,
great store to go to. I wish I could have gone out, but like I said, by the time the first 3 rounds were done, I was maybe in preparation stage of getting ready for WrestleMania. So, and I was all in on WrestleMania. The kids are ready for it and everything like that. Like,
yeah, thanks so much for that. That was super good, and I really enjoyed being able to join in.
Yeah. Hopefully we can do something like that and some HeroClix throughout. We'll do like a live stream during the pre-show or something.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be awesome.
Or just before the pre-show.
Do a battle royal before the battle royal.
So before we move to questions, I did want to cover one quick topic. We're not going to be able to, like we said, the post WrestleMania syndrome plus the 2 tournaments we had to do. We're not going to have time to do our piece by piece prior to release sealed. So sorry about that, guys. But we'll get that done next week for, for what it is. Looking at each piece one by one. But Devon, he's a smart kid. Part of the team that does a lot of the smart work for us, and he already knows this next thing, which is Devon. What's going to be competitive in Rebirth? And we'll try to nail it down to the top 3 since we're getting late.
Literally everything, but yeah, I really like the Starfire. 50 points for a nice 11 and 3 running shot pulse wave with a stop click at the end, with cosmic keyword, which is obviously a really, really good keyword right now, is awesome. The Raven, who's 50 points, carries a bunch of people, has perplex, prob, and support. Really good piece that I'm looking forward to playing with either monster or mystical. I played at Jackson Queen. I played a Lord Chaos and Master Order mystical team with shifting focus Doctor Strange. But the problem with it was that it had 1 threat, which was Lord Chaos and Master Order, and if I lost map and was on an indoor map instead of the hedge maze, I just didn't really stand a chance. So the nice thing about having Raven there is that I can drop a couple of things that I was playing and replace some of them with a Daredevil, who also has the mystical keyword, the Earth X one, while still maintaining enough probs and perplexes to make Lord Chaos Master Order a significant threat. So I'm looking forward to trying that out. Prez is great, 35-point leadership for keywords that just don't have access to it. Can definitely
like
make it up. Yeah, robots, celebrity. Celebrity feels like a keyword that should have access to its own leadership, but just doesn't.
They're too full of themselves. They're not going to lead each other. They're going to lead themselves.
I guess that's the logic there. Yeah, but it is an awesome keyword with, again, Earth X Daredevil, who has been mentioned in everything that we have talked about tonight, apparently. Along with 50-point giant girls, who are also really, really good, and lower point giant girls. And one piece that I really like, which probably won't quite be competitive, but is definitely good, is the new Bombshell Black Canary. She has 2 rollouts. She's 60 points or 65, I can't remember which. But the really awesome thing is that she's running shot pulse wave with traded force blast, and she gives out action tokens to everybody that she hits with her pulse wave.
We missed you, Black Canary.
yeah, exactly. She's back. If only we had an ID for her, because she would be the perfect ID character.
Absolutely.
As is, I don't know how playable she's going to be main force, just because she's a little squishy for her points. But if you can pull off her trick, she's ridiculous. So I'm looking forward to seeing whether I can make something happen with her. I'll at least practice some teams. And by the way, those pieces that I just listed, 2 boosters at a pre-release, pulled all of them. So I'm done the set.
So basically what Devon is saying is that his pre-release pulls are the meta.
Fair. Not on the same team, though, really. Yeah, I'm sure there's other stuff. I'm not trying to be comprehensive here.
No.
But
Mr.
I'm
Oz,
excited
Mr. Oz.
Oh yeah, Mr. Oz is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the set to be modern legal so that I can start playing around with some of that stuff and see what actually works.
Mm-hmm. Tom, you added Mr. Oz. Is there anything else we might be missing, or?
Well, I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. I haven't looked closely at this set yet, and I've been kicking myself. I mean, with the preparations for the states provincials, I just haven't been paying as close attention, and I've been working a lot and stuff. So I gotta get on that. So I would be remiss to give any meaningful suggestions on a set that I only know in passing. So I don't know that I have a lot to contribute. Mr. Oz is the one that I keep thinking about. There's something about what's the super rare Green Lantern girl's name?
Jessica Cruz.
Yeah, Jessica Cruz. There's something about Jessica Cruz that I like. I just haven't quite figured out what it is yet.
I don't remember her very well, honestly.
I mean, I love the Green Lantern core team ability so much,
Right.
and the fact that she's got phasing with it. She's barely more points than Green Oracle, who's my other go-to on that, but she does start with shape change, which I remember.
With a variant of your soldier team.
Yeah, and the fact that she can do telekinesis after moving if she doesn't move too far seems like it might be helpful as well. So I don't know. I'm still thinking, but again, I need to know the set better. So
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know the set that well either. I know the pieces I've seen, but I'm sure I'm missing. Oh, the only other one that I should mention is the Lex Luthor, who is not undying necessarily, but feels like he's probably tough enough to kill that he could be an effective call-in battery. Do you guys know what he does, or should I?
I got him up here right now. Oh yeah, my monitors are all messed up on OBS.
Okay,
let me go old school and use the screen share. I haven't done this in a while. There we go. Share screen. Boom. Share. Have to go old school. Sorry, folks.
Right. Yeah, so it's really that the trait and the defense power that are super important here. Impervious, Lex Luthor takes a maximum of 1 damage from the first attack that hits him every turn. So if you play him on some sort of barrier tech kind of thing, you can really easily protect him from being attacked more than once a turn and make sure that he doesn't get whittled down. At 200 or 100, he would be a pretty effective call-in battery, although at 200, obviously, there's some better call-ins that you can choose, especially with the Con Magneto coming for the Magneto Bounty ID card and normal ID card. You can have a lot of high-point pulse wave call-ins, potentially. So looking forward to seeing if there's anything there. Not sure, but...
Should probably have also mentioned Billy Batson, Shazam.
Right, of course.
A lot of potential there. Great bunch of keywords. 20 points with a stop click is crazy enough to begin with, but 40 points to turn into somebody with amazing ID shenanigans is a big favor. So
yeah, because he actually he's a rare, and I can't seem to find him. But he's like a 40-point rare that turns into a 100-point character that you still only score 40 points off of. It's some crazy interaction, as it were.
Yeah, I love it.
He's really
not in this thread.
Yeah,
Is he rare or uncommon?
I feel like he's uncommon just because the Shazam is rare.
Billy's uncommon. Shazam is rare.
Yeah. Okay.
I felt that's the case.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just some extra perplex is always a good thing to have sitting around on.
Oh yeah.
For mystical theme teams, and also cheap mystical characters were not in high supply. So if you are playing a mystical theme team that really needs to win map, you have a 20-point character now, technically.
Yeah, with a stop, like he's not easy points. Stop click, and he goes on to shape change when he has it, if memory serves. So.
All
right,
cool.
I think that's the high points of the set as far as I know right now.
Yeah, like I said, we'll go through it piece by piece next week as it will be out, and we've had some time to actually mull it over. We'll spend a little less time on Sealed, though I have to check my calendar and compare to when Worlds will be coming up. Because I don't think this is going to feature at Worlds, but I think I'm right on that one, but I may be wrong. Who knows?
Nationals?
Yeah, it could be part of the Nationals qualifier, so it might be worth it to talk about now that I think about it.
I think it's confirmed that the Black Panther set will be out by the time Nationals happens, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, it's always hard to tell, so we'll just spend a little time on Sealed.
And there always could be delays and stuff. So
that's happened before.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Really? With this game? Never. Unheard of.
Yeah, you're right. I was wrong.
Delays. You're kidding me. All right. So before we move into questions, we want to take a second to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/madewithclicks. Any evaluation gets you gets you access to our patron Discord, as well as access to our patron hangout, which is actually this Sunday, April 14th, at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So check that out at patreon.com/marriedwithclicks. Any support helps us out a lot. It just helps to keep things running and keep things going smooth. So thanks to those who are supporting us. Congrats to Mr. Fedor, who has crossed the $1,000 lifetime mark as a patron.
Crazy.
It's awesome to see that people have been with us that long. We've been running this for a while, and it's really helped support us a lot. Also wanted to take a little second to thank the guys at New York who got us to American-style Girl Guide cookies. Ooh, boy, are we looking at some fun in that.
Which I didn't get any of.
Well, Devon, you're just gonna have to wait and come over. Honestly, we haven't eaten any. My mother is the only one who's had any. She watched my kids while we were in New York, and I was like, I can't not send her with something.
Makes sense.
She attempted to fleece us for the rest of them by telling us they were no good, and she must come and pick them up and dispose of them herself.
How thoughtful.
How thoughtful of my mother, right? She's a thief. Right. I know her too well. She taught me all of her tricks. All right, I'm delaying for time because our first question on the Facebook comes from Mr. Chris Stockhouse.
Hooray!
Right. It's official. I haven't been able to do the stamp in months. I miss you, Chris. Devon, Chris used to ask a question every episode, so we'd have to put a stamp on the episode, and then he literally gave us a rubber stamp one time, so I couldn't not.
That's pretty awesome.
All right, so he leads in. What a good showing from Team Married with Clicks this weekend. Keep it going into Nationals. Any idea when Canadian Nationals will be and where? Inquiring minds would like to know. We know right now. But he actually has.
I'd like to know. We do not.
Yeah, we want to know too. Trust me. We're all part of the Inquiring Mind family. His actual question, though, is, which of the WKO prizes that just became legal are you least excited to play against in the next few weeks when people try the new stuff? Or do you expect to see a resurgence continuation of old meta pieces for this last weekend of states, provincials, and all the rest of the events heading into U.S. Nationals? I don't think there's any that I look at and go, I don't want to play against that.
I agree.
I know I'm trying to work with Isaac myself.
I think we all are. I think it's fairly fair to say that Isaac is the best, but that doesn't mean I don't want to play against him.
Yeah.
I just think he's the only one I think there's any chance of facing.
It depends on the style of the team I'm playing against with him, I guess. Because if it's like full barrier, that's never ultra fun to play against.
No.
Not like terrible, but obviously I would prefer to play against something that I can interact with a little more, usually. But always something you have to plan around. People have been very successful with barrier teams in the past couple weeks. Dustin Cedars won with one, and then I think Dan Powell also won with the same barrier team that he talked to Dustin Cedars about. Yeah. There may be more examples, but those are the two I remember.
And Black Dwarf is tough, but he's not going to be seeing much play.
At 100, there's tougher stuff you can play.
When I say tough, I mean he's just a dude who can get punched in the face and keep going.
His top click is very hard to hit, but not hard enough, I don't think.
But yeah, Isaac's probably going to be the guy you see the most, and like we were saying.
And Mandarin Remaker Ring, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Neglect to mention the Mandarin Remaker Ring, but of course,
Remaker Ring. I always forgot about that one.
Yeah, once the con rings are out, that's going to be a little more of a problem because we have that reaction smoke cloud plus stealth ring that you can put on the same person as the shape change ring.
Yeah, this game's getting silly, all right.
How do you kill a Black Panther or Unimind with those things equipped? We will have to see.
Dinosaurs.
Of course, Black Panther likes it a little more because he is pulse wave proof.
Yeah.
Always, whereas Unimind would prefer to pick the stealth from one of his sideline figures so that he gets pulse wave proof stealth.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Michael Fedor. Speaking of the Alpha himself, the first patron. I was working all weekend. Did WizKids release any new WWE info over WrestleMania, or will it take a little while longer for any more info to come up? Honestly, there's still a little while till we get any kind of information. And that's, the set comes out at the end of the year. and not much is going to be said about it until it's time to actually start marketing it, which will be closer to release. WizKids does run a very small marketing window, it looks like, so that would be my say. I mean, just flat out, there was no information at WrestleMania.
Yeah, that's an easy answer.
There's barely any time for matches, man. 7.5 hours.
Yonks.
Jeez.
Yeah. All right, next up, Stephen Clark Jr. He's got 2 questions, actually. First one, are you guys going to any states this weekend? And if so, where? I'm planning on going to Michigan and Indiana. This is his own answer in there. And his second question is, do you think X-Men team will be an awesome team again and worth playing after Hawkeye retires? So, as far as states, I'm not going to any other ones. Where I originally said, hey, I might go to Michigan, I've completely gone 180 on that one, and I'd rather go to the local release tournament. It's been a while since I've been to Comic Warehouse, and it's hard to get the travel time and the kind of time I need to do that thing. So, unfortunately, I'm out for states this weekend. Tom, you plan on going to Michigan?
I was, but in all honesty, I've been neglectful of my my responsibilities as a good, boyfriend type. So I'm gonna stay home.
What about you, Devon?
Yeah, I was gonna go if Tom was gonna go. I'm not.
So that's a no now?
No, yeah, I mean it is, but also this week was exhausting. So I'm not like ultra sad about it, really. A second trip to the US in 2 weeks, combined with playing that much more HeroClix. Like, obviously, I would still do it, but I'm not, sad.
It's a lot.
Prospect of not doing it.
It's a lot farther too.
Yeah, it is. And maybe I'll see you at that release tournament, Jason. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm still 50-50 on it because I also have D&D with guys at the office that night, but I have to find out if that somehow got canceled. You know how
What
D&D
day is? What day is that?
Yeah.
That's Saturday is the D&D.
Oh.
And the release event.
Yeah, that was something. I wasn't gonna horn in on your D&D.
Knowing my boss, he'd be like, "Who are you, and where's your character sheet?"
Yeah, exactly.
And as to the second question, just gotta remember what it was. Our X-Men team's gonna come back. It's hard to say. It depends on how. I think it depends on how good the Vulture team continues to run. Because one of the things the Vulture team, the way it's being run, becomes problematic for the X-Men team is he can flurry the Wolverines, and that kills the Wolverines pretty good because, I mean, Wolverine gets a stop, cool, you're 17 defense, I attack again.
There might just be enough good X-Men stuff after this summer, though, that it's playable without Wolverines on main force and just as sideline, at which point even Vulture being good might not prevent you from playing it, because like the dupe that's already been revealed, for example, doesn't die to just a Vulture.
Yeah, he doesn't care. He's got a tiger on the back of his motorcycle.
Yeah, like Dust is good. There are things that you can play on X-Men that will still be good, even if Vulture is good. Obviously, I think most of us are hoping that Vulture is not going to be the thing to beat for the next 2.5 years, because that's going to massively change how everybody has to build teams. But we'll see, I guess.
Yeah,
we will. There's a very unlikely, like, it's very much almost impossible at this point to build a decent themed Vulture team. So if nothing else, then if your X-Men team has the ability to take advantage of their map and or first turn action an initiative through any combination of elements that currently or soon will exist, then that's one thing that would help its viability, but we have to wait and see.
Mm-hmm. All right. In the chat, there's a question in regards to Roll20 from Lucien Carter. I recently learned some people play online. I'd love to learn more. I put in a link. If you're watching in the archive, the chat results tend to stick around for a bit. So check out the link that I put in the chat that sends you to a video that Clickstoff did that really gets you started on Roll20. I have not had a chance to. It's just something about game feel for me that I'm just uncomfortable with Roll20 myself. But that's not to say that it's a bad thing necessarily. I think it's a really good thing for it because it's getting a lot of players a lot of practice, especially in isolated areas where you don't get a chance to play. So, long and short of it, I'm the wrong person to ask. Tom and Devon, though, you guys have used it.
What do you?
Have we both just played with Emily, Tom?
Yeah, well, I mean, you've been at it longer than I have, Devon. At least
I don't
you
think
say.
so.
Well, I thought you said you used it for like D&D or whatever before.
Oh yeah, that's true. But not for HeroClix other than with Emily.
Right. Well, I mean, the link. If you already linked the clicked-off video, Jason, like all I did was went on YouTube and typed in HeroClix Roll20 tutorial. There were two of them. One of them that I watched. One of them was a clicked-off one. The other one was either Mr. Clicks Fix or one of those. I'm sorry, I can't specifically remember, but it was one of the first hits. After watching 25 minutes or whatever, I knew everything I needed to, and after that, it was just self-evident. So
Yeah,
it's
it's
actually
not ultra complicated.
it's very easy, and the nice thing about it is that it's one of those sort of burgeoning things where people are learning little tricks that make it better. So once you know the basics and can hook up with someone else to play, then they'll probably be able to teach you something experientially. It's a lot like learning HeroClix.
Yeah. Anything you want to add there, Devon?
No, that's about it. I haven't played that much, so I don't think I've learned the little tricks yet. But I definitely do want to do it a little bit more for like Canadian Nationals when that's coming up. Once I've figured out what kinds of teams I want to start practicing. So
Right.
If you want to practice at some point, Tom, let me know.
I'm into it.
I honestly, if it wasn't for the feeling issue that I have with it, I'd probably be using it more to practice with you guys because I haven't gotten. I'm isolated in my little desert island in Mississauga, so.
I think you can get used to it. I think it actually works really well. I'm a big advocate for it now. I don't have a lot of time at home or on the road, so my time is harder than Roll20 is. Roll20 is easy.
All right. Last question we have in the chat, and this is coming from Ricky Yell. Tom, were you also able to run anybody over with trains on the Skull map? Or
the answer is yes. It helps, of course, that there's a mind controller on my team that doesn't care about the map. The best thing to do, which I've done in other tournaments and practice, but not so much on Sunday, is to use one not necessarily tank with the skull, but rather have one retaliator step out, punch a different retaliator to death, and then get run over by a train. And that's relatively easy to do once Daredevil's in the control booth. That's a lot of opportunities to roll either a 6 or the track you want, and then you'll see what happens with your actual roll on the map. But yeah, it definitely does happen. If I built the team a little differently and put a Professor XID back on instead of something, I don't know what I would do, but it's one option is to get more mind control options to get more people out of the tracks. There's no way to prop that track roll, so I don't think you ever build a strategy that relies on it. But the very fact that people don't want to be in it restricts where they want to move to, and you can use that to your advantage. And running people over is never a bad thing. In fact, at one point, I had a Daredevil inside of a track with somebody else, and I wanted Daredevil a couple squares forward, so I just hoped to get the map roll. I got it. I knocked Daredevil out, moved him forward so I could call somebody in, and I was in a better position. So, there's little tricks.
All right, awesome. On that note, Tom, Devon, thank you very much for joining me today. Guys, thank you for watching live. Thanks. If you're watching us in the archived version, we appreciate you watching. And I also want to say thank you to our sponsors over at MajesticCCG.com. $3 a month gets you access to the Apex Insiders. That's MajesticCCG.com/Apex-Insiders. If you're going to become a great competitive player, learning from some of the guys who have succeeded in the game is a great way to do it. You can also find articles from some psychopath that they pay to write articles. I don't know. His name's Jason Collins. His stuff is out of his mind.
You wrote about some weird scientist theme team?
Yeah,
I don't know.
this weird scientist team. I don't know. I don't know how he
TL,
making hits. It was really weird. But better players do write articles on that site as well, and I want you guys to check that out. So once again, it's MajesticCCG.com, and check out the Apex Insiders, add in a /Apex-Insiders. We are also brought to you in part by the Starting Over podcast host, Ed Sheldon, and his practice services. It's just, he helps us a little bit. And then states and provincials have passed, but nationals is around the corner. More states and provincials still to come, because there's one more week of them coming up. And if you need that extra edge that your local play group might not be offering, or you don't have a local play group, Edward offers a wide variety of services to help you refine your play style. He offers tactical coaching and even practice games. His fees start as low as $15 an hour, and some of the proceeds go to help support the show. Contact him at the startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. The link is in the description, as well as a promo code MARRIED with clicks all in capital letters to get started today. So like we were saying, Roll20 is a good source, and Edward Sheldon, he doesn't even have to be right next to you to help you practice and get better at the game, because you know what? Practice is an important element. It makes your teams better. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.